You're watching the Sensephere channel, and now some chilled discussion after the week's angst, with the Doctor Who Detox Hour, or two.
God, they'd wake you up, wouldn't they? My God. Well, I mean, what is this? Is this midday? Is this 1 p.m.? I mean, we keep changing. This timey-wimey, does it work for you? I think, as you know, you in Australia, I am jiggering around here to try and give you the same slot. It's going to get earlier and earlier at this rate. My God. Anyway, so welcome again to the Detox Hour or two. But in Britain, it's now 11 a.m. I mean, at this rate, I'll be presenting him from bed. At this rate, it'd be like the Late Breakfast Show. So, welcome one and all. But it's a good one. It's a good one. Are you a little bit sick of the Halloween stuff now? Every stream has gone Halloween mad. I'm not going to even say the words Halloween. Halloween. But I thought, no, let's get back to brass tacks. Doctor Who at our best. If we want a detox for the weekend, you need Tom Baker. Come on. So we're going to look at the Tom Baker years, and we're going to go from different directions. The best and worst season. Yeah, I've even applied the word worst. The best and worst villain, monster, producer. Oh, a cliffhanger. There's so many different ways we can look at this. So let's indulge. Let's enjoy. There is no way that doing the Tom Baker years will make anybody feel worse afterwards. He so delights in the role. He so enjoyed the role. He so embodied the role that, let's face it, it was infectious. So let's enjoy, and I'm sure you will all be cheered up. Whatever news you've heard about Doctor Who or other stuff, this will warm the cockles of your Whovian heart or hearts, and you'll feel a lot better. So, quick, massive piece of housekeeping. If you want to be a panelist, if you want to come on, if you want to suggest a topic that we debate and argue about, you can get me on X. You can email me at Sensesphere. Please do so. That would be really welcome. I love that. We had a great debate last week on the race and gender decisions going on in Doctor Who over the last few years. Please tune in on that one. That's gone down a storm. And if you want more Halloween, there's more Halloween out there. Our Halloween special is there, so take a look at that. Another great stream. Best stream in history. I'm trying to be topical. Do I sound like anybody in America? Great stream. Fantastic stream. Great stream. Oh yeah, I've got to do my hands like this. Great stream. Please add to our Sensorite subscribers. Our army, our motley crew are joining us from everywhere, and you're very welcome. Right. Oh yes, that's got my item ready. So I've gone racing there because I'm dying to get our friends on again. This is the Aussie almost detox hour. It makes me laugh. I call it the Aussie detox hour, and we get people from all over the world, but it has an Aussie voice to it. So let's get one Aussie voice on, because I know I'm an Aussie, but it doesn't sound like it. How you doing?
Hey, how's it going? Good to be back.
Is my accent better?
Your accent?
Yeah, I'm sounding more Aussie by the week.
Are you really? No, don't.
No, because I'm one of those. If I try and do an Aussie accent, I sound like a Cockney, the classic. You know, I can't sound like an Aussie. I'd love to.
I'll be doing your accent in a minute.
Well, that's it. I know the stress. It's very strong. I know. It's very strong. So I am Australian, folks, and British. So yeah, I think there's one that seems to be winning over the other. And we've got Doug in a time, Eddie, but we do have Cybermat Strikes, Dan. So here he is. Hiya, Cybermat.
G'day, Brendan. G'day, Dwayne. How's it going?
Well, I can see you've put a bit of Baker behind you.
Yeah, I've dug out some Baker for tonight.
Yes, bit of Tom Baker paraphernalia. Can't go wrong. You've got your little Davros at the bottom there. I can see Tom Baker in the scarf because, of course, the argument is he did change his costume slightly over the years, but I still prefer the original. But yeah, so there you go. That's our panel for now. Dougie hopefully will join us soon. But you know, like I say, these time eddies, the fourth Doctor was supposed to join the five Doctors, and it never happened. Never happened. It was a waxwork. So we've got a lot to talk about tonight. We've got the Tom Baker years, like I said. We've got the childhood movies that got you going. We've got the news about the Terror of the Zygons and Robert Banks Stewart. So I suppose we've just got to get going. But I thought, let's just kind of detox the Halloween stuff. And you saw a little glimpse earlier. I think he's called Adam. He's not called Adam Lambert. He's got a similar name, Andy Lambert. He on Twitter is doing all these Doctor Who magazine monthly, kind of reconstructions. And that one, of course, you may have seen our picture because we did the thumbnail recently for Halloween of this, but Clayton Hickman's done the colorization of it, but it's beautiful looking Doctor Who monthly. And of course, a bit of Talons of Wen Cheyenne at Halloween would be good. And there's Scary Fanny, Fanny Craddock. She was always on. Did you get on your TVs in Australia? Were you saved?
That's a first for me. Never seen her before.
Yeah.
No.
They played around with her name a bit. I was only little. It was in the 70s when I heard about her, Fanny Craddock, and she was a kook, and she would really be quite aggressive with people around her. She wasn't, TV friendly, really. Had amazing eyebrows. She could have been in a RuPaul drag show, I think, because those eyebrows, she looked like a drag queen to me. Anyway, so Scary Fanny for Halloween, if you want the Halloween recipes. But there you go. Gosh, aren't you glad you're in Australia?
Even the eyes on the pumpkin look a bit more evil than normal.
So
Looks like a scary Lucille Ball, I think.
Yeah. So before we move on, though, we've had Halloween streams and all the rest of it. Australia, your daylight and night times are funny for Halloween. It's still daylight, isn't it? Really?
Yeah, where I am, because the day's a bit longer than up north. It's daylight till about 7:30, 8 p.m. at this time of the year. So still plenty of light around. Yeah, I was actually out eating fish and chips on the river last night. So that was my evening. I avoided the streets.
Classic. We stayed in. We were sitting ducks. We had a little sign outside saying "Welcome to the haunted house," and we had all the sweets ready. We just like, let's embrace it. After an hour, you kind of go, "Is that dog going to go anymore?" But yeah, we got the full whack. Or pitch black, foggy. So it was really good. Halloween in Britain, it tends to work with the fog and the mist and everything. So Cybermat Strikes, were you going around houses? Did you collect much money?
No, I was actually just happy tonight because Mrs. Strikes had bought lots of chocolates and lollies for people that came to the door, and not too many people stopped by. So guess who gets to benefit from that?
I did overspend. So there's plenty there. There's plenty left. Yeah, so we've got the same problem, Cybermat Strikes. Right. Okay, well, let's get going. So this item I thought might just kind of warm everybody's cockles as we go in. So it is a Doctor Who detox show, and Tom Baker is going to be the main item. But I did think you might want to enjoy for a few moments, everybody in the thread, everybody here, going back to our childhoods. What was Doctor Who up against? I don't mean in a time slot. I just mean, if we like Doctor Who, what else was out there that was serving up for the kids' childhood movies? So I've lined up a fair few for you. So let's see what we all agree on. So first of all, I'll just quickly get Doug on to prove he's there. Hello, Doug. He's now out of his time, Eddie. You've done better than Tom Baker did. Oh, and he's gone.
Nope.
Oh, no. You see, this is it. Time Eddies are evil.
Sucked into the vortex.
Yeah, he did. I mean, I'm like Barusa. I mean, hello.
He's back.
This is Barusa.
Hello.
Calling. Right, you're on.
Gotcha.
You're on, but you're going to be off because I just do my intro, right, for the childhood movies. Here we go.
Okay.
then you get Doug's heavy breathing over the top. There you go. I mean, it's not a horror show, this, but anyway. So, childhood movies.
Is it that bad? Is it?
No,
It's a new microphone. Sorry.
that's all right. Just you be aware of your heavy breathing. So, childhood movies. Let's have a go. So I'll just introduce one or two, and then I'll ask everybody in the thread and yourselves. While we were also enjoying Doctor Who, and for me it was the Tom Baker years because obviously it was the 70s and obviously some Pertwee. But what else was on? What else was grabbing my imagination? And so, let's throw a few up. I mean, I have to say the Willy Wonka and the Chocolate Factory did grab me. I can't cope with any other version. And since we're all getting dominated by what's going on in America, I saw this yesterday. Look at this. Somebody's done Donald Trump as an Oompa Loompa. But I mean the Willy Wonka thing, and it's a great book, obviously, Roald Dahl's book, great caricatures, and the color and the magic of going into a chocolate factory and that scary scene, with that spy in the alleyway, and he grabbed the Charlie Bucket and he said, "You tell me the secret," and all that. Absolutely loved it. So for me, one of them is Willy Wonka and the Chocolate Factory, and no other version will do. It is this one. Anybody buying into that one, or going to raise me a different one?
No, definitely that one.
I'd never seen it until about 2 weeks ago.
Never.
Wow.
Wow.
And the reason I saw it is that, well, here's the order of things. I started because Netflix has recently released their version of Wonka, which is like a prequel to this. And then so my daughter in particular wanted to watch Charlie and the Chocolate Factory. So we watched that, that with the Johnny Depp version, because she just read the book. So she was saying what's coming up next. And so this is the first time I'd seen these films because it's never really grabbed me. And then I said, well, there's another version. Let's see if we can find that. So we watched that, this one too, but only in the last 2-3 weeks. But what is interesting about it is that my grandfather, when I was a boy, always used to sing a song with Oompa in it. And I never knew where that came from. And it was from there. So there you go.
Wow.
Yeah.
Wow.
Oompa dooby doo. Yeah, something like that.
I must admit, I did enjoy Hugh Grant's recent performance as an Oompa Loompa. I thought he did a good job.
Well, I'd love to have seen this Oompa Loompa. That would have been funny.
Actually, speaking of Oompa Loompas, I love Deep Roy. Yeah, if we're talking Talons of Wang Triang in the Johnny Depp version, that was great.
That's true. That's very true. We might see Deep Roy again, by the way, in one of the photographs that I always hit the Facebook photo research group when we talk about the Tom Baker years. Look out for Deep Roy, not in costume, and what Tom Baker's up to. So there's one movie. I mean, I'm just raising some of mine. I think every kid in the world at some point will say The Wizard of Oz because that was our Christmases. And it was so colourful. And to be, what was it? Still, it was in the late 1930s. But as a kid, I didn't think, the wobbly sets. I didn't think anything. I just thought, oh my God. Of course, as a kid, I was bored rigid when they're in black and white. I hated all that. I wanted them taken away. I want a twister now. Away, hurry up. I loved all that. And of course, the Wicked Witch, so to me, the colour of this was a great place, the Wizard of Oz. And maybe the Willy Wonka one flies into that. Just give a kid colour. Give a kid a threat. I mean, the Wicked Witch, I have to say, was scary for kids. And all them monkey things, her monkey guards or whatever they were.
The monkeys are terrifying.
Yeah, because they fly, don't they, I think, and capture you.
That's it.
You think of, and I'm trying not to, I am trying to detox, but I do think of recent Doctor Who, and I'm thinking, well, where were the scares, really? All these movies had colour, majesty, imagination, a different world, but they also had threat. Am I selling this one, or are you going, oh, no, that never worked for me?
No, definitely. What about Chitty Chitty Bang Bang, the child catcher, Robert Helpman? That's terrifying. Absolutely terrifying.
You
Am
mean
I having a deprived? Did I have a deprived childhood? Because I didn't see that as a child either.
you had a
But
deprived?
Oh,
No,
really? Oh, wow.
so, but I did see. I
That's
mean,
a
I have
brilliant
seen,
movie.
but Wizard of Oz is great. So it's, well, I did see Chitty Chitty Bang Bang as a. Is that the Lost in Space guys in the?
No, it's Dick Van Dyke.
It is different, yeah.
Two, but the silver, because the picture's a bit smaller on my screen. It looks like the Swiss Family Robinson, Space Family Robinson in the car. Anyway, there you go.
Oh,
But-
okay.
But yeah, you did mention Dougie, the child
The
catcher.
child catch.
Oh my god!
Terrifying. Terrifying.
And yes, I don't know if he'd be. Well, no, let's be honest. He wouldn't. Roald Dahl doesn't seem to be allowed. Unfortunately, he's getting edited out. You can't say fat
No.
women now. He's got a pointy
No.
nose. He's an ugly, evil child a catcher. You know. No, I'm sorry,
Mm.
but he scared me as a kid. I didn't trust strangers because of him, and he scared me
And he's an
from
Aussie.
ice cream vans. Remember, because he was selling lollies, wasn't he? So in our
Yeah.
country, just like yours, the ice cream van coming round, don't go near them because the child catcher, it'll be a cage inside. Absolutely scared that. And that, I have to say, that movie, again, great color, great imagination. But it's when he's creeping around and and I impersonate him as a teacher. I'm going to sound evil now, but to get the kids laughing. When the kids are all working quietly, I go, children, lollipops, all free, and you do all that, and they all kind of look at me, going, "Gosh, I think there's a phone helpline for us." But I love those lines because they give you the absolute blooming creeps.
Yeah.
So
yeah, definitely.
I mean, these are mine at the moment, but obviously I'm going to be asking you all, don't worry, in a moment. Willy Wonka, Chitty Chitty Bam Bam, Wizard of Oz. I will be checking with the thread in a minute. One of our dinosaurs is missing. One of the Disney ones. Again, this would not be shown now because Peter Ustinov is all set up like a Chinese man. It wouldn't be allowed, but great. I love this. A big dinosaur goes missing in London. Loved it. So I'll just rattle through one or two of mine and it might trigger you to think. And this one, Phantom Toll Booth.
Oh, I was just about to write
wow.
that down because that was one of
Wow.
mine. Loved it.
Go on, you tell us about that, Dwayne, because obviously if you were going to talk about that.
Well, I'd read the book first, so my school library had the book, so I read that and then saw that was available, and I love the combination of live action. So there's live action at the start, and then it goes through, and he turns into animation, and I thought that sort of captured me right from the start.
Yeah.
But I think when I was reading the book, one of the scariest parts of it was the feeling of being trapped in the doldrums. I think that was the scariest part for me, and the movie sort of brought all those feelings back as well. So fantastic movie. Loved it.
Yes, and again, it's a bit like the Wizard of Oz. I wanted them to get into in this case, I want them to get into the cartoon world. You know, get in the toll booth, get on with it, you know. But and it linked with the Cat in the Hat type stuff, didn't it? Dr. Seuss. It was all very. It seemed to be the same type of animation in parts, didn't it? That creature at the back, it had that. It was fantastic. I found it really fascinating. That. Well, I loved it, and it was cleverly done. Anyone else bought into that one?
Yeah, that was Eddie from the Munsters, wasn't it? The kid, pretty sure. So I'm pretty sure the kid was Eddie from the Munsters. I might be making that up.
Okay, I mean, people are remembering one of our dinosaurs is missing. I think it sometimes tells you where people are, but I got to see that in the theater. I think I did as well, mainly because I was a dinosaur nerd as a kid. Apparently, the dinosaur skeleton would appear again in the first Star Wars movie. RP saying, was it Dippy the dinosaur that went missing? I mean, it was a great conceit. I mean, there's a lorry taking a massive dinosaur through London streets that looked very Victorian when it, you know. John Pertwee, yes, he was in it. Yes. In fact, it was a fantastic cast of British actors and comedy actors. But John Pertwee, yep, definitely in that one. Reese Roder, I think my most watched kids were, and I nearly did put Oliver down, and I have got Aristocats. Yes, the Aristocats. David's never heard of the Phantom Toll Booth. David, you're going to have a treat. And I think we can all guarantee him that, can't we? If he looked up the Phantom Toll Booth, it is so imaginative. And I think, you know, that movie that goes into the head, is it Pixar do it? I've forgotten the name. Inside
Out.
Yeah. In a way, there's an element, for some reason, that dream sequence and all the rest of it. I feel as though there's an element of Phantom Toll Booth in it. Do you?
But yeah, that's true. It also gave me a love of puns as well, because you look at that dog there.
Yeah.
And he's got a clock in his stomach. He pulls open his stomach and there's a clock inside. So he's a watchdog. So, you know, it's got things like that all the way through it. And so it gets you sort of thinking outside the box too.
Yeah. So far, this is the quality of what you were up against. You know, as a kid, you're very dominated by what movies are on, what people are talking about, what's on TV. Can Doctor Who compete with this? Like I said, we're doing a Tom Baker years today, but one that really did capture my imagination was Herbie. I mean,
that's on my list. Yeah.
Yes. I'm actually restoring a Herbie at the moment.
Yeah, you know, I'm a little lad. Herbie, a car. I mean, there you go. I used to like the Hanna-Barbera speed buggy. I mean, the whole point. I love all that stuff. So, I mean, I think the one that stands in my mind, I don't know if it's Herbie Rides Again. There's one of them where, Herbie's in a race and everything. But obviously, when I was a bit older, Herbie Goes to Monte Carlo, when he started to fancy another car. I loved all that stuff. Where she fluttered her headlights, you know, that.
True story, I think it was Herbie Goes Bananas, where they throw Herbie off the ship. And every time they threw him off the ship, I used to get really upset as a kid.
Oh, you suck.
They make him walk the plank and they push him over into the ocean.
Oh, David Hardin's mentioning Benji. I nearly put Benji up. Yes. And Digby, the biggest dog in the world. I remember that one, which was like a Dulux dog. Yes, there's certain ones that they always either showed at Christmas or they showed at certain points in your summer holidays, and you thought, "Oh, right, I'm going to watch it for the 100th time. I don't care." So yes, that one. Bugsy Malone. Remember when they do the splurge guns and great movie, I thought. I've got a few other there, so I'm going to just trigger people now, and then I'm going to ask the panel in the thread for their details. I love that Rescuers movie. The Albatross landing, that whole sequence, loved all that. Bedknobs and Broomsticks, well, it's the football match I liked, really, the cartoon football match. You've got the Muppets, the Railway Children with good old Bernard Cribbins, Escape to Rich Mountain, Return from Rich Mountain, if these are triggering any for you. The Aristocats, as I mentioned earlier. Charlie Brown, I loved all those Charlie Brown ones. Snoopy Come Home, Charlie Brown Thanksgiving, there's loads others. The Muppets, I said earlier. Does anyone remember the Fu Manchu movies?
Yes.
Because they scared me to death. There's me a kid, and it wouldn't be allowed now. I get sick of saying that. It is of its time. But, you had Christopher Lee as Fu Manchu, and it seemed so colourful. As a kid, it was kind of grabbed you in the way that Chitty Chitty Bam Bam would grab you. But obviously, it scared you because there was murder going on and everything. But I love the Fu Manchu movies. Anyway, Doug, any coming to mind there?
Firstly, is my microphone okay? Because tonight it's proven that technology hates me. So if I'm dropping out, please tell me. But to answer your question, there's a film that I love called The Ghost of Mr. Chicken with Don Knotts. It was a staple of school holiday television. I don't know if anyone remembers it. Otherwise, Mary Poppins was a favourite. Obviously, we've said Chitty Chitty Bang Bang. And to be honest, Doctor Who and the Daleks, I mean, that was my absolute favourite kids movie. The Peter Cushing one.
Yeah, I remember when the video club started, and your mum and dad, in my case, my mum and dad would say, right, we've got a video club subscription. We're going to go to the shop. We're going to drive to the shop, kids, and we're going to get a video out for the first time with our VHS player that we're renting.
Oh, my God. Oh, the old
And
days.
my brother, who's only a year younger, hated me because we'd go in the shop and we couldn't decide. Loads of great movies, you know. And then I suddenly saw the Peter Cushing Doctor Who Dalek Invasion of Earth, which I'd seen many times. So I thought, oh, video, I could watch it. And of course, I won the argument. And my brother was like, what? Our first ever video we're going to rent is going to be Doctor Who and the Daleks. Anyway, so I was in luxury and loving it. But
Oh,
yeah,
great.
happy memories.
Yeah.
The first time I saw the Doctor Who, the Cushing movie, I was put out by the fact that I was like, there's no theme music. I'm like, what is this?
Oh,
This
yeah.
isn't.
Yeah.
What have I got here? This isn't Doctor Who.
It's an adjustment. Yeah, it's an adjustment, but it's worth it.
Yeah. So, Dwayne, I must be triggering a few memories here of what you used to like. You know, you saw it in the TV schedules, and you thought, "Oh, yes."
It's funny. You're showing a lot of sort of kid-specific movies in there, but they're not the things that really appeal to me as a kid.
Very good point.
There were sort of other things too, like there was when I was probably 10, there was a period where every weekend they would show Abbott and Costello movies on the weekend.
Now
So
you're talking.
week after week, I would watch all the Abbott and Costellos.
Yeah.
And there's one in particular called Lost in a Harem that still to this day cracks me up every time. It's not one of the more well-known ones, but Lost in a Harem is just, if you haven't seen that, it's so funny.
It's good. It's good.
So I also got a love of the 40s from watching stuff like that. So things like Glenn Miller, it sort of got me into that kind of music and stuff that my grandma loved. But also other movies too. Like I always liked Mr. Ed, but of course the movies, there was Francis the Talking Mule.
Yes.
So I liked those as well. They were actually movies. But one movie that really affected me as a kid, and if we're talking scary movies, it was Vincent Price in House of Wax. That one they appeared on TV all the time, and I found that because you've got dummies there, wax dummies, the wax works. Combine that with my first memories of Doctor Who Spearhead from Space. Those two things together were really scary for me as a kid. So House of Wax, the original, I know it's been redone. I don't know if I've seen the remake that was only made in the last 5-10 years.
Not very good.
What else was there? Isn't it? Now, you can't beat a bit of Vincent, can you?
No.
But I must admit, it's a good call out the Abbott and Costello, because Abbott and Costello, I mean, I know I'm trying to, somebody's got to go to Mars. There were so many in the jungle,
Frankenstein,
the French Foreign Legion, the classic one with Dracula and everybody in it. And as you know, I loved the comedy of the fact that he was never believed behind you, and his breathing, and he's laughing and crying at the same time. And as a kid, he acted like a big kid, didn't he? I absolutely loved him. And he did seem scared, in a kind of comic sort of way. Absolutely, yeah. How can I forget Abbott? If you said Abbott and Costello on the telly, you thought, "Wow, brilliant!"
Absolutely.
But equally, I suppose the Laurel and Hardy movies, I did like, all that slapstick too. So you're right on that one. We've got
Jerry
Moby
Lewis.
Dick mentioned here. We've mentioned Oliver. What else? Because remember, it's all about, we're going to come to the Tom Baker years, which obviously was the bulk of the 70s. But what I'm saying is, we were all, your eyes can only focus on one thing, and there were other things around that grab you too. So Doctor Who had to be on top of its game in imagination. Planet of the Apes.
See, when I was,
Sorry.
Planet of the Apes, brilliant.
You can't beat the first one.
Especially you can't beat the first
original.
one, but the second one was extremely disturbing. I always find, all those humans, worshipping the bomb underneath, beneath the Planet of the Apes.
Yes,
That was some of the most disturbing scenes in that series, and that always scared me. I think there's like a combination of this weird organ music, like a bit like Harrison Chase plays that funny music with the organ. They did that in Beneath the Planet of the Apes too, so that was pretty creepy. But I was going to say that when I was, how old would I have been? 9 or 10? I would have been in grade 5 or 6. The teacher who also happened to be the headmaster, showed the class. It was the end of the year, and he put on Raiders of the Lost Ark. I'd never seen that before, so it was the first time I'd seen that movie, and I can still remember how amazing that was to watch the first time, just on a television in the class. Didn't see it at the theater, but that is probably one of the best opening movies of a movie series that you could ever want, and it's sort of that really sort of grabbed my imagination like never before, and that is a classic. Particularly when I say particularly, I mean only the first three are the ones that it's just unbelievable stuff. And Raiders was a great memory I have of seeing that in the classroom for the first time.
Well, here's another good call out. RP Forbidden Planet.
Yeah.
I mean,
yeah.
You see, Doctor Who was up against it, and I have to say, even they had the Lost in Space series on ITV sometimes, and of course, because it was American, you had the color, and sometimes, I don't know. I mean, it just looked more expensive. It's like as a kid, HR Puff and stuff obviously was so standout visually compared to any, BBC in-house made studio production for kids. Sometimes it was the production values, wasn't it? But yeah, Forbidden Planet, all that stuff, Lost in Space, Forbidden Planet, absolutely loved all that stuff. David Harding's calling out the original King Kong, and then the 70s version, which I saw on a very wet day in Bangor. We had a very rough holiday in 77 to the Isle of Anglesey, North Wales. No, don't do it.
I don't think anything beats the original King Kong. What was that? 1933? Was it?
Something like that. Yeah.
Amazing, incredible stuff. And it was years and decades before Ray Harryhausen with his stop motion movies.
Absolutely.
And it's just still mind-blowingly good, that film.
Well, Lee Smith has now hit. I mean, has just freaked out. Obviously, you've got the Star Wars. Yeah. I mean, God, we were obsessed at school, weren't we? Did you used to get them chewing gum things, and then you got the cards? So you collected all the cards of the photographs of the original Star Wars. Yeah, we had to chew an awful lot of gum to get all the cards. I remember that. The black hole. I still like. He's like little Jimbo. I like the black hole. I love that whole idea.
That's a dark movie.
Yeah, it's a weird movie.
Yeah,
it's a good movie, but it
is.
sort of doesn't know what it must be. Yeah, it's a good
Flash
one.
Gordon's alive.
That version, that's great. Yeah.
I mean, I'm feeling a bit older now because Flash Gordon seemed a little bit. What about this? I mean, I know I'm talking to Australians. I don't know what cut across. I could say stuff like The Amazing Mr. Blunden. I don't know if they're crossed over. But what about this one? This got me. The 12 Tasks of Asterix. I remember it was the first time I was properly allowed to go to the cinema with a friend on my own. And you had your 12p or 20p or whatever it was. And we were allowed to do a daytime visit. And we were both Asterix fans. And I don't know about you, but I had all the books. And then you get the 12 Tasks of Asterix. And just to go and see a bumper version of Asterix, because I have to say that on my imagination as a reader, yes, I'd read all the books, the proper books, but I do like a good comic strip like this. And it was funny. And it's funny. My dad would borrow it and my uncle would borrow the books and laugh. So it was like a panto where basically the adults got something out of it and I was getting just the adventure. And for Asterix fans, I still think Asterix and Cleopatra is probably the best. I like the spying in that. I used to read these
constantly along with Tintin. So I'd go an Asterix and a Tintin and back and forwards. Until I got through all of them over and over again.
Yeah,
the thing with Tintin is I always wanted to get the Destination Moon because I like my sci-fi. I love Tintin, but I need the Destination Moon. I want the one where just because I like a spaceship and stuff like that. Mad. You can't take it out of us, the sci-fi thing. So are there any others that we've? I mean, God, it's taken me back. This it's fascinating, isn't it? That, can you imagine being a Doctor Who producer with a limited budget in the 70s going, how the hell do we compete with stuff like this?
One
I
movie
remember-
that another movie that grabbed me as a kid was The Thing, the original version of The Thing, which was made in the 50s,
Oh,
and the
James
tension in that
Arness.
was.
Yeah.
Is that who it was?
James Arness from Gunsmoke.
Not the
Gunsmoke,
John
yeah.
Carpenter version from the early 80s, but
No,
it was
no,
just
the original. Yeah.
so tense and incredible. Yeah.
Yeah.
I think was it called The Thing, or was it called The Thing from Another World?
It was called Thing
might have
from
been
Another
the proper
World.
title
Yeah.
of it.
And yeah, Thing
Yeah.
from Another World. Yeah, definitely.
Well, we've
I
got
only
I still
saw
think that
recently the
stands as-
Blob.
Steve McQueen.
The original?
Steve,
That's Steve
Yeah, it
McQueen,
was a-
isn't it?
Steve
Yeah.
McQueen.
It's
yeah.
really funny, isn't it? It's funny when Dwayne's saying, "Oh, I didn't see some of these movies till a lot later," and then you're mentioning the Blob and all these things. I'm thinking I wasn't allowed to see these till. It's
I
funny,
snuck
isn't
them
I
it?
in.
wasn't. All the ones that I've seen tonight that you guys have been talking about, I would have seen it on replay because I wasn't there at the time.
Well,
You're
we're
a baby.
getting loads
You're
now.
a baby.
We've got loads
Yeah.
here. Alistair Sims, Scrooge. I mean, I could list every Carry On movie. Yes, when they came on, Wizard
Yeah.
of Oz, as we've said earlier. The
Yeah.
Wombles movie had Bonnie Lanford in it.
Really?
And I got yeah, and it's got all the songs in it, and yeah, she's got that very British gentleman that's always in the Disney movies, and I've forgotten his name, but yeah, she plays a bit like the Violet from the Just William. She's a bit like that, but
Okay.
she's got a lisp. She's about 9, 10, 11 age group. She's the only one who can see the Wombles.
Oh.
But it's still cute. It's just very kind of cheaper on that side. P, look at this one. Battle Beyond the Stars. Trying to do Star Wars. I liked it. I did like it though.
Yeah, it's good.
The Last Starfighter was another one from the 80s that got me too.
Oh my
Was
god!
it Louis Gossett Jr. would play
Yep.
the alien in that?
Yep.
Yeah.
So yeah, it's crazy, this, isn't it? In fact, I'm now getting frightened. If I was Philip Hinchcliffe or Barry Letts, I'm now bricking it because you're thinking, "Oh my god, how do we do this with the budget? We need units to go to a cave." Yeah, how the hell they did it? They must have got so scared sometimes. Freaky Friday was what everyone talked about at school. It wasn't my thing. I liked that Big John, Little John. Obviously, I don't know if it was more because it was about a girl that I was like, I don't know. Right. Or you can see Tom Baker's awaiting us. So I can't tease people. This is what Doctor Who was up against. We've looked at some childhood movies or movies of our childhood. But my big question now, as if, and remember, we will discuss this later. Terror as the Zygons and Krynoids are doomed to leave BBC iPlayer, and I've checked this morning; they're off. The
Wow.
Robert Banks Stewart. Oh yeah, we've got a news item on that. Don't worry. It started to kind
I've got a couple of questions on that too.
yeah. It
Oh.
crept into Twitter yesterday, and anyway, we'll save that. But stay with us, everybody, because that's our news item, and you can see.
Don't save it. I want to know why.
I'm
Yeah,
gobsmacked. I didn't know this.
I don't know. I don't know what's going on. So
Right,
I'm in the dark.
Well, we'll save that rather than going out because we promised the Tom Baker. So, Tom Baker years. Here we go. So we're going to be looking at. There's a delay there somehow. Let's have a look.
We get you in stereo.
Yes, I'm not sure why. Can you hear me now? Is that okay?
Gotcha.
Yeah, it's fine now.
Yep.
All right. I seem to be in stereo. Yeah, okay. Seems to be a tech issue there, Doug. It seems to have blown up. It's when I play me. So if I just show you some of these pics first of all, this is obviously season 12, and look at that rehearsal shot from Robot with Nicholas Courtney and Tom Baker. So anyway, what I wanted to say to everybody is, right, Tom Baker years. Yeah, I'm gonna really, really challenge you. Oh, I'll tell you what, there's no taking prisoners here. We're not just doing a love fest of the Tom Baker years. That would be too lazy of me. No, I'm gonna throw them right in it, and I'm going to say, right, okay, Tom Baker, which one? Which season? I'll be kind to them first. Which was the best season? Which was the worst season? There has to be a worst. I know that you might say they're all quality, but which was the worst season? Take a look at the list. There you go. So basically, our beautiful Tom Baker years. And I know we're very nostalgic, and I've color coded them to save time. That's me nailing my colors to the mast. You don't have to agree with it at all. You could tell me off. Obviously, green is classic, fantastic Doctor Who. Amber wasn't quite there for a multitude of reasons. I mean, amber can cover getting quite close to red. And my reds are there: Underworld, Meglos, Warriors Gate. I know there's some shockers there for me, but that's we all have an opinion. Judging from that and nothing else, I'll be honest with you. I mean, I just did it quickly and instinctively. I think I have to nail season 12 as the best. I love the Philip Hinchcliffe era. I would always say that in a debate, but season 12 just landed so well. And I have no problem with Revenge of the Cybermen that some people seem to always have. Some people mention it as a weak spot, and I don't at all. Anyway, enough for me. Dwayne, where would you like to go on that one? Your best season?
I was the best. Okay, so is there a difference between best and favorite?
I suppose best is, I'm thinking, I was just thinking, which was the best season for quality of just getting you, grabbing you? It just felt like great Doctor Who.
Because see, more recently, my favorite season would be season 17. However, I think probably for me, the most consistent season would probably be, it's so hard. 13? 13?
Okay.
Starting with Terror of the Zygons, finishing with Seeds of Doom. That's probably the most consistently good for me.
Good season.
So Dwayne
was getting in their stride.
So I'm being naughty, and of course, our news item that I'm trying not to go into, but our news item does hit on season 13, therefore, is what we're saying here, Dwayne. So we're going to have an interesting discussion about this, because if that's your best season, two of the items aren't quite where you want them to be if you're flicking around on streaming services. So what about you, Cybermat Strikes? Your best season, do you reckon?
Oh, look. They're all good, really. Like, I think to me, it's not a bad and a good thing. There's good and then there's great. I think I tend to agree that the early Tom Baker is great. I can't differentiate them. They're all strong for different reasons. I think probably the Key to Time is the weakest point for me, but there's still good stuff in there. You
see, I'm a classic teacher. You see, Cybermat. I'm thinking, right, okay, because when I went instinctively to do my green, amber, red, I didn't know where I was going to go, whether it was season 12 or season 13, etc. But it's quite obvious from just me flicking through this, because Android Invasion I pitched up, Mask of Mandragor pitched up a little bit.
See, your reds, I don't like your reds. I think I'm trying to work out on what basis you've panned them, because Warriors Gate, the ambition's huge.
Yes,
and
it's
the story's really good.
I agree. It's always execution with me. I try and get into my kid's head. I think I said on the last stream or a couple of streams ago, Warriors Gate, I respect for its ambition, and I love the book. I needed the book to try and understand it a bit more, but it's the execution. It's on, Saturday night. I understand it?
What do you not like about Meglos? I really love. I think that's a really cool story.
Some of the experimentation with the white sets behind, it doesn't do it for me. I didn't like messing on with Tom Baker either. I mean, you had in Leisure Hive, you had him aged. Then the story after, you have him, turning into some sort of porcupine. I struggled with what they were doing to my fourth Doctor.
I really liked it. I thought I love that messing around with the dodecahedron and all that stuff.
And we got Jacqueline back, of course. But I know, but I'll take a risk and always put my instinct up there, ready to be shot down. But that's
so you won't swear allegiance to Ty.
No, no, no. And it's gone out my head in Underworld. The quest. Oh God.
Well, what's wrong with the quest?
Oh.
Jeez, you're a rough marker, Brendan.
Yeah, I know. I am a rough marker. I'm an instinctive marker. So, Doug, we'll give you a go. I know it's throwing the stereo around at the moment. So, what's your favourite season?
No, I can hear you all right. Can you hear me? That's the important thing. Or do I need to get closer to my internet router or something?
No, we can hear you, but when I speak, it then throws an echo back. That's all.
Okay. I personally think season 13 is my favourite. Whether it's the best or not is up to, I guess it's subjective. I'd go 12, 13, 14. I kind of lost interest after about season 16, but
yeah,
that's probably because I was a bit older than you guys and I discovered girls and other stuff. I came back to Doctor Who later. But for me, 12, 13, 14 are my favourites. But then, of course, there's City of Death, which I think is an all-time standout. That's season, I think it's 16 or 17, I can't remember.
17, yeah.
City of Death's good, but I feel it's a bit overrated.
Oh, definitely, but it's entertaining. You're right, though. It is definitely overrated.
Yeah, I mean,
It's not as good as Nightmare of Eden, that's for sure.
Yeah, Nightmare of Eden rocks. How can you not love a monster made of drugs?
I mean, so on the seasons front, well, okay then. Well, let's go the other way now. We seem to have said either season 13, 14 area for the best. So I'm with Doug a bit, and it might be an age thing, I don't know, but my instinct was, although I could see the production values of John Nathan Turner coming through, it's not Graham Williams' fault, but I struggled with Graham Williams' combination and what he was instructed to do, and Tom Baker's out of control and the humor, and it with the sets not looking. I mean, the sets were always what they looked like, but it just looked a little bit cheaper. And when you add the slapstick involved, I just started to think this program's not taking itself seriously. Bit like season 1 now. It makes me want to leave to the exit door and go and play with the lads some football. So I agree with you, Dan, on the key to time, which was an interesting idea to do in Doctor Who. Bit Keys of Marinus, I know. But to do that and then, yeah... It didn't grab me, though. It's interesting. It didn't grab me. In fact, the one that people slag off a lot, the Armageddon Factor, was one of those I actually kind of liked. But I don't know if it's because of the shadow. Do you know what I mean? It was a shadow that got me.
Yeah, the actual key to time component overshadows the season. But each of the individual stories in their own right aren't too bad, actually. I was actually pleasantly surprised when I went back recently to rewatch them, but I don't know why, but the actual stats season seems to have been a bit weird in terms of getting your hands on it. It kind of all, I don't know if it got special treatment or distributed over in the US differently, but it's sort of got left out a few times especially with the DVD releases over here. I don't know if you remember that, Dwayne. I think my DVDs for that season are actually from the US for some reason.
No, I've got the UK version.
Okay.
Or have I? No, I think the DVDs were from the US.
Yeah, I've got mine.
Wasn't it released in the US before?
Shelf. Yeah, it was, and
like a big pink kind of box. Is that what you got?
I've got. I don't think they're still in its box, but they've actually got the the 1996 logo on it, and they were dressed up completely differently to our DVD range, and they were in NTSC format for some reason. So yeah, I don't think they actually ever got distributed here. In the same range. It's a bit strange.
So we're looking for the, we've said the best and we're looking for the worst, because then I'm going to start really nailing down stories, villains, monsters and everybody. It's going to get tasty. I'm giving them an easy time at the moment, the Tom Baker years. But what we're just saying there, Doug, we've just sent you a message on to check your echo cancellation settings. That's the thing that would help, I think. Just stick with that. So on that front, everybody, pure no, let's have a look. Triple Jazz Musical, good to see you, has said, how much are our decisions made by the companions and I suppose the TARDIS crew they're with at the time? And that's true. That's true. Let me throw one up though. You know Leela, good old Leela. Okay. Now you like Louise Jameson, or you like her lesser than another character, but did everyone see these photo stills of the early days? There we are.
Yeah.
The original Leela as was. My God, it just
Blacked up.
Yeah, I know. It's quite shocking to see now, but I suppose at the time, look, we've got publicity shots there. They've tried it out. I'm wondering who put the brakes on it. I mean, there's a photograph of Louise caking it on herself, and Louise is pretty progressive with her politics, isn't she? It just shows you that when people say things, it's of its time. And people, Louise Jameson's always been a political, she's a good actress and she's aware of her politics, and she's consistent. So this is just of its time, but it's fascinating to see, isn't it? To think, gosh, we're going to have a Savage as a companion, and Savage and color skin, yeah, that might be problematic. Why that had to be a choice, because we're doing an alien, aren't we? But yeah, gosh,
They left the contacts in though for the TV series for a while.
They did, didn't they? And it was the horror fan rock that changed it, wasn't it?
It was.
But yeah, when you look at that now, you think,
did they not have fake tan back then?
I think she's caked. Well, we've all used fake tan. Well, maybe the Aussies haven't, but I've used fake tan once. I remember turning up at work and I probably looked like that. And I'm thinking, oh, and of course, your white collar ends up being so messy. But
orange is more the color these days, though, isn't it?
Yeah, we all want to look like Donald Trump. Yeah, that was it. So, so Dan, have you seen that before?
I've seen the photos, yeah, but I can see why it didn't go very far. It would have been hard work trying to maintain that, but
hard work. But the other thing is, I'll be really honest with you. Aren't we glad they pulled back from this? Because I don't think they'd show these now. Otherwise, do you know what I mean? All the Leela ones. It's like,
do you know what it looks like to me? It just looks like she's been gardening for a week without having a shower. I don't see anything. It just doesn't make any sense to me anyway. So, but I don't see anything. I don't think I ever saw anything racial in it, but it was just, why doesn't she have a wash,
Yeah, I don't see it as offensive. I just see it as it doesn't pass the pub test in terms of it's like the execution just doesn't quite work. It's not convincing.
Yeah, the argument is always when it comes to this brown face, blackface thing that, well, why don't you just hire, the person of that color anyway? I mean, why do you need somebody else to play it? And I get that. But on the wider point of blackface, brownface and stuff, and in this case, because of where we are now with TV programs where you will have what might have been a white historical character like Isaac Newton turned into something else, isn't that the same thing? You're doing it back, aren't you? It's just that rather than using makeup, you're just casting it differently and actually just telling a lie. So yeah.
You mean like actors pretending to be things?
Well, Isaac Newton was a white man, but as you know, in Wild Blue Yonder, he wasn't. And isn't that the same? If that's seen as cool, why isn't it cool for anyone to do this stuff that clearly you're not allowed? I don't understand. If you change the color of somebody's skin deliberately for a TV show, everyone says that is outrageous. You can't do that. Okay. That's of the 70s. But then we'll change a real historical character and select an actor of a different ethnic background, and that's acceptable. Isn't that the same bloody thing?
Can you imagine Daniel Craig playing Shaka Zulu?
God,
that wouldn't happen, would it?
No.
John Wayne is Genghis Khan.
Yeah.
And that's what I mean. I just think, you know, when people try and say something, yeah, okay, black and white minstrels and all that, we know it's of its time. Talons of Wenchayan, great story in the Tom Baker years. I know some people have a problem now with, you know, one of the parts, but I have a problem equally with how 2024 is treating race as well, but it's in a different way. But I find it fascinating.
I just don't think I don't think people really are offended by it. I think we've got this fake moral outrage now. Everyone wants to be, you know, virtue signaling and getting worked up over it, but I don't see what the big deal is.
Let's see if I can get Doug in and see if we've got everything fixed. Let's have a look. So, Doug, how are you? Are you there? Doug?
I thought the controversy with Isaac Newton was that he wasn't hot.
Well, there was the gay thing as well. I mean, you know, you're just changing people's sexuality. You're changing it just seems a madness. And I'm throwing Tom Baker up there because obviously this is where we started with the Tom Baker years, basically. So yes,
Speaking of movies, there was a movie that I loved too, The Golden Voyage of Sinbad.
Oh
God,
yeah, he's really creepy in that. I can see you. It's interesting how they watched that and said, "Yeah, that's our doctor."
Yeah, I bet it's the eye. I mean, the voice, the eyes, and all the rest of it. So if Leela wasn't yours, I mean, you've got the Deadly Assassin, you've got all these other ones. So I'm going to start pinning you down now. I mean, best and worst seasons. We've kind of. I mean, I think my worst season, I suppose, season 17 fell off. Nightmare of Eden, really, and against like Warriors of Gate, the great story, very ambitious execution, mandrels, etc. Horns of Nymon. I kind of have a kind of liking for, but obviously there's lots of problems in it. Sharda didn't really happen, so the season 17 collapsed. Season
I thought
6,
the Farrells were well realized in that as well. I thought they did a good job.
No, they were. You're giving it a good go. I can't dismiss that. It's just the overall execution. That's all I go on is execution of the actual whole story. But Dwayne, where would you go on?
That's so hard. How can you try and pin me down on this? If there's this, I'm not. How can I pick a worse season? It'd be a toss-up between the Key to Time season 16, but I love that season. So I think it has a consistency about it that season 12 doesn't. So I'm going season 12. That's the one I would sort of go to last on my picks. If I was going to go a Tom Baker story, I'd pick a season 12 story last. So I have to base it on something. I'll base it on that. And it's got less episodes. There you go. Hasn't got as many episodes as the other seasons.
Oh my God, Thread will now go on fire, Dwayne. Thank you for that.
Let's hope so.
So here, let's up the stakes. If you had to wipe a season or lose a season, which season could you cope wiping? Would you still say season 12?
Probably not.
There you go.
You see, every season
probably go season 16 then.
16, sorry guys.
Yeah,
but how can you do that? Because I love you're talking companions that we love. I also love Mary Tam. So how can you get rid of season 16? Yeah. I mean, Mary's beautiful. Louise is fantastic.
Yeah.
The probably companion I enjoy the least is Romana 2, but I don't want to get rid of season 17 either because that's one of my favorites. So. Oh, it's too hard.
Too hard. I know it's. I'm just okay. Then, well, let's try and see if there's an easier version of this. Then, right? Your favorite story, your best. I know there couldn't be different things, but your best or favorite story of the whole Tom Baker years.
Talons of Wang Chang.
And go on, take us through why what was close to it.
What's close?
Yeah.
Probably
Horror of Fang
Rock. Literally.
Snap.
But it's also, you know, it is similar time period as well. So it's a difficult one. Maybe Robots of Death. Those two are probably top of the pile for me as far as stories go. You can't really beat the Agatha Christie style Robots of Death, can you? It's fantastic for that kind of genre, and that's what Tom Baker, the early Tom Bakers were classic in terms of genre stuff that they just looted and pillaged and culturally appropriated into stuff that we love. Yeah.
And as I promised, there's Deep Roy. They're playing that football game with obviously in rehearsals for Talons.
The Clute, if anyone knows Blake Seven.
So let's move to you then, Dan. Your favorite story?
Oh, geez. I'm really like Genesis. I mean, but I've got all the same affection for all those stories that Dwayne just mentioned too. Like, yeah, they're all go-to stories. They're very hard to differentiate. You know, I was just thinking about the cliffhangers that I like the best. You know, which come from I think Pyramids and Pyramids is probably one of my favorites as well.
You see, Pyramids, I am really strict on these things. Pyramids of Mars is a classic, of course it is. And Pyramids of Mars, I think, is absolutely hitting every beat for 3 episodes. And then the 4th episode, I still think, feels a little bit fillerish when we get to Mars. That sort of thing. You know, I'm that strict. I'm that kind of... Do you know, it would have been brilliant if we just stayed there. If I judge 73 yards, I know I've come down a peg or two there here, but 73 yards, where they stayed in the pub in that Welsh village, he should have kept them there and not ruined the atmosphere and gone political and done years and years again. And with Pyramids of Mars, I know the whole idea was there's a beacon on Mars and all the rest of it, but I really just think stick at that, in that force field, keep them there. If there's any way they could have kept the story just pinned down there, because I think it was hitting every beat. All you have is mummies in the woods. That's it. Brilliant. Keep going. Keep going. So even Pyramids, I can judge harshly, you know, I can.
If we're talking scary, probably for me, the scariest Tom Baker or Fourth Doctor episode would have to be, and this will no doubt come up soon, but Terror of the Zygons. I think the cliffhanger, you're talking cliffhangers, episode 1 of Zygons, the cliffhanger there is just spine chilling.
Yeah.
There's 2 cliffhangers in The Deadly Assassin, which always got me, which is, you know, the Doctor getting his foot caught in the train tracks and the train coming towards him. That's one. And then you've got the drowning one in the following episode. Sensational cliffhangers there.
Yeah.
And yeah, of course, there's good cliffhangers in Talons too. But I think Zygons is probably the most atmospheric, scary story. So
yeah,
there's no way I could ever get rid of anything from season 13. That's for sure, as I've already said.
Yeah.
David Harding agrees. I don't know if I can pick a favorite Tom story. He had so many great stories and very few really weak ones. I mean, the lads were saying this to me before we started today, going, really? And the weak ones usually had a weak performance, like Soul Deed or Poor Effects. And that's what I'm doing, David. Obviously, some of them are our favorite. No, we kind of have a soft spot for them, even though they're fairly weak. But
I'm still confused about Meglos, Brendan.
Yeah, Meglos is just wrong.
I'll get the thread on fire. It was a filler.
It's not a filler. It's not a bad opinion. It's just wrong.
The truth was,
what was wrong with Soul Deed? Somebody was awesome.
Oh, Soul Deed, dear me, it was Panto. Dear me.
So what's wrong with Panto?
Well, that's when we got to the
bloody Shakespeare compared to what we got in season 50.
He had that Paradise Towers feel to the acting. You know, the Kangs.
Wasn't he in the short list for playing the Doctor at some point?
Yes.
Was he taking over?
He was.
He was there at before Tom Baker got it, right?
Yeah, they had a list. There was him, Ron Moody is the famous one, wasn't it? And Mr. Pastry. was he Cat Weasel?
Hey, Richard Bryars should have got a bloody BAFTA for his performance in Paradise Towers.
That's what I mean.
Amazing. That was amazing.
Are you winding me up?
Part 4? You're talking part 4, aren't you?
Yeah, where he's
that's the
pretending to
pinnacle.
be dead.
Yeah,
Yeah,
yeah, that's
he's
right.
just drooling and
Well, Paul
he's
Richards.
talking to those neon lights.
Well, Paul Richards is challenging me as well. I love the cliffhanger to episode 3 of Meglos, the Doctor about to be crushed. Well, yeah. I get you. I can only speak my truth. I mean, I suppose that's what people want. I mean, you can also argue with me to death. I wasn't watching it as avidly then. That is the truth, and you can't get around that. It had turned me off a little bit. And actually, although everybody goes on and on and on about Leisure Hive through to Legopolis, I only really tuned back in because I knew Tom Baker was leaving and I wanted to see it. But I was drifting slightly, and the more it looks like Top of the Pops, and the more it was more polished, and clearly it had up the stakes. It had, and it was trying very hard. It wasn't grabbing me though. It felt a little bit more artificial. I've got to tell the truth. State of Decay and all them didn't get me. Now I was a bit older, and your age comes into it. But yeah, the Meglos
Full Circle's the one that from that season. Full Circle's the one that I struggle with mostly.
Yeah, the watermelon one.
Yeah, that's the watermelon one. I like that.
The melon, the melons everywhere, and the spiders.
Well, you know what I think it is? I didn't get Doctor Who magazine very often. I think it was called Doctor Who Weekly back in those days. And I had a copy of it, and it had a synopsis for Full Circle in there. And it was talking about these spiders popping out of the melons. And I think it was talking about one of the cliffhangers, I think, where one of the spiders got on Romana's face. And I was reading that before I ever saw it. So I'd never seen the story, but when I did see it, those spiders were realized so poorly because I'd seen them in my mind. And then when I saw them on screen, it just killed everything that was already in my head. So I think as a result of that, it's those spiders that kept me in Full Circle more than anything. The story itself is not bad, but yeah, that one aspect just sort of killed it for me.
And do you mind, as a Doctor Who fan, that when you watch, say, Full Circle and the Marshmen coming out of the swamp, which is well directed, that you, as an older fan, you're going, oh, they're trying to do the Sea Devils again. They did it in Curse of Fenric. They're trying to do the Sea Devils again. I mean, do you think that's acceptable, that Doctor Who sometimes tries to echo bits that were very famous in the past?
Yeah, but
That's
then
bizarre,
you could say,
right?
oh, they're trying to copy the Hemivores. Or the Hemivores were trying to copy it. I never really felt that they were copies of things.
I got that with the Marshmen. I got that sort of Sea Devils vibe there, but I never got that with the Hemivores for some reason. I'm not sure, maybe because those two girls were in the water first.
Yeah,
So that sort of,
maybe. Yeah, you do. I mean, you find patterns, don't you? And sometimes you force the patterns, but that's what if you were in the pub with me talking, I'd be saying the Marshmen, the Hemivores, and the Sea Devils is Doctor Who trying to hit the same kind of, such an iconic moment, the Sea Devils coming out of the water, that it had to be somebody else had to copy it in another way. And Andrew Smith go for it in a Full Circle. And to be honest, they did it in a way probably better because you had that lovely mist, didn't you? It was a really well shot. And, whether Full Circle had moments in the liner, I was less interested, but I did like all this atmospheric stuff. Loved all that. And I love the marsh spiders. Isn't it funny?
The Sea Devils were much better costumes too, strangely
Yes.
enough, being years earlier
than
the Marshmen.
And, using the same argument, lads, marsh spiders, are they trying to do Planet of the Spiders again? I don't know.
But the Planet of the spiders are better than those spiders too, by a long shot.
Yes. And there's a story I never understood. I think it's because there was a camera in shot, and I thought, why is there a camera? No, I never understood that story, really. Oh, God.
Which one was that, Planet of Spiders?
Warriors Gate, this one.
Oh, Warriors Gate.
What didn't you get about it, Brendan? It made total sense.
Well, I don't know.
You had you had to think about it, but, it was within reach. Yeah,
maybe I was in reach of the kitchen and I wasn't for focusing. if it hasn't grabbed you for all the episodes, that's the problem, isn't it? If you're avid, you're going, "Oh, this is amazing." But Doctor Who, there were points when my eyes were averted, you know, and I'm trying my best to follow it, and I'm going, I'm not getting this. I mean, East Space, I think I had to kind of check out East Space because I don't think I'd seen every single episode. You know, the lads were wanting to play football outside, and Doctor Who wasn't pulling us. The Five Faces of Doctor Who and Legopolis and Keep of Traken got me right back in again. And it was actually, let's be honest, it was bringing back the Master. But I remember
Do you know what got me about Warriors Gate?
Go on.
There was one thing in Warriors Gate that always sort of detracted for me, and that was just one moment where Captain Rorvik says, "I'm finally getting something done," and goes, "Ah ha ha ha," and does this crazy laugh that made no sense to me. It was like, is he actually an actor or what? It doesn't seem like a real laugh at all.
Yeah.
I don't know if I'm the only one that thinks that, but it just was really weird. It took me out of the story.
Right. And that's what
his descent into madness was a bit awkward, wasn't it?
Very awkward. That's a word for it.
So, I mean, I remember thinking, God, the Master's back, and being excited by that, but being disappointed that you didn't get. In my case, I wanted the emaciated, deadly assassin Master. That's what I wanted. I love that one. I never expected to see Roger Delgado back for obvious reasons. So I didn't expect to see the Master back in kind of humanoid form. I expected to see the Peter Pratt type Master, which we kind of did, but it was a different mask.
Well, it's not even a mask; it's teeth painted onto the lip. It doesn't quite work, does it?
No,
so his
it
teeth
was weird.
Beaver's teeth are blacked out, and they painted teeth on his face.
Lips,
It's very strange.
Really weird. Yeah.
So I've bought your thinking time, lads. You've mocked me for picking Meglos. I haven't said it was the worst one. It's one of the worst ones. I mean, but it's
we're not mocking you. We're just pointing out that you're wrong.
Yeah, we're just correcting the record.
Mocking me.
Fixing your opinion.
There is no your truth. There is only the truth. And the truth is you're wrong.
Thread, I'm going to get them back now because while they're mocking my choices, we have yet to hear their worst.
Yes, Michael Q's pointing out poor K9. That what they did to K9 was really slack.
Yeah. Oh, yeah. I did get
him into the ocean at Brighton. That was pretty poor.
You see, Dan, isn't that the problem with season 18? That they were messing with Tom Baker's Doctor and they were messing with K9 too. To be honest, John Nathan Turner was showing he wanted rid of both. Now, you're buying time, Dan, and right in front of you on that screen again are my choices for the worst Doctor Who's, middle ones and the good ones, which have been mocked outrageously. But Dan, you know, something that you think didn't really land as a Tom Baker story as much as the others?
Look, to me, Shadows is way overrated, even if it had been executed, and I know all the problems with production, but to me, even the story is okay, but I think it gets a lot of hype. I think the fact it was never finished has overcooked it in terms of fan opinion. I don't know if that's controversial.
It's definitely his weakest. It's his weakest script for sure.
Yeah,
without a doubt.
Yeah, it's one of those. You heard all the stories about Tomb of the Cybermen. You read the book, and then when they found them, it just about lived up to it. And we all know Enemy of the World surpassed what everyone expected when we saw it. When we saw the bits and pieces from Sharda, there were too many bits and pieces, and I think trying to cobble it together. I know what we're like as fans, and we know there's other fans out there with money who are trying to do AR reconstructions and da-da-da-da-da. That's what fans do. But I just think Sharda just didn't have, in a way, it maybe serendipity was, it's not going to happen. There was a strike. We can't make it. You lose it. I think it's a good call out that because I've tried with every version of Sharda they've shown me, and I find
I didn't mind the Paul McGann redo with Lala Ward. I thought that wasn't
that was
bad.
Good, wasn't it?
Yeah,
the way they weaved it into
it.
the actual story was very clever. Very clever.
Yeah. I enjoyed that version of it.
So you're going for Shard, are you, Dan?
Yeah, I think so. I think, you know, the execution obviously had lots of other factors at play, but I don't think it deserves all the accolades. I think the mystery of it, because it wasn't completed, is sort of overcooked. Yeah.
So
I like Creature of the Pit.
no,
Creature
not
from
allowed.
the Pit.
No.
No, but see, like, you know, Arato is badly executed,
What?
but Lady Adrasta's hot. So I don't know.
See,
There's something about her that, as a kid, I was like, yeah, I know which way I'm going.
I could be very strict. I mean, Creature from the Pit, I liked it. It's kind of light humor, and you know me, I don't really like humor in Doctor Who, but that kind of just bordered on the right side. I didn't mind the Creature from the Pit. That it's overplayed. That you know,
It's Baildon and Baker. Top
Baildon's
form
great.
together.
Yeah.
Scenes with those two
Weasel.
together are just sensational. Yeah.
Yes. So and the model work, I think people forget the model work. I'm just collecting it here. The model work for it was pretty impressive. There it is. There's the shell. And we had the spinning of the. I thought actually that talk about ambition sometimes. I thought the jungle sequences and everything as usual. Doctor Who tends to do jungle pretty well. And
Jungle sets in that were fantastic.
Yeah,
Really good.
And I thought
the wolf weeds, the way they did the wolf weeds were great.
Wolf Reeds was a great idea.
Hey.
Again, it falls unfortunately into Dan's criticism, which I agree with.
No.
K9 was
David Harding saying, you know, look, I was just winding Brendan up, David, because I know he likes Creature from the Pit.
Well, what's that?
No, David Harding's saying that, you know, just like that, he has to disagree with me. But
David,
I'm just saying, David, I'm just winding Brendan up.
David, I've had 30 years of teaching. If you say your opinion of any text to a class of 30 teenagers, they will enjoy just nitpicking when they haven't nailed their colours to the mask. It's classic. Happens every time. They sit there all smugly, just not giving their opinion, playing safe.
I gave you my opinion. It's Shadow.
Okay then. I'm striking you off. It wasn't even broadcast. Go on, pick a broadcast one.
Okay, we're getting.
Yeah, we're getting tasty now.
Can you put the list back?
It's about 50 slides ago.
Triple Jazz said the best thing in Creature was the inclusion of Jacqueline Hill, but that she wasn't in Creature; she was in Meglos.
Yeah.
And the best thing
the disappointment though was when you knew when it was Jacqueline Hill, but unfortunately it wasn't Jacqueline Hill playing Barbara. It seems a bit of a shame not to have her back as Barbara. So there's your list as requested.
No, not Invisible Enemy. No. Reboss Operation. Yeah, I don't know. Reboss Operation.
Okay. I can see where you're probably going with it, because I have to say
there's some good performances in there. It's not a bad story, but it's, you know, really it's just about a bank robbery, isn't it?
Yeah, and I'll tell the truth as I see it, because you can only do yourself, and you can say you had a different experience. After Invasion of Time, and then the season had ended, and it was a bit of a flat ending. You know, there were some bits in Invasion of Time we all liked, and some bits where it dragged out. Season over, and then you look forward to a new season of Doctor Who, as everybody does. Ribos Operations comes back, and you could see they'd injected more humour. They were really going for humour. Mary Tam, fantastic. Romana, getting used to her. Again, remember, being a Doctor Who fan was always weird, because Leela, I thought, oh no, I want Sarah back. After Leela for a while, great. Oh, Leela's left. And now we've got this Romana who's so stuck up in Rebus, which she was meant to be.
See, like, the thing with Leela is, you know, the whole tying Leela up at the end with, what was it, Eldred or
Eldred? Yeah, Commander Eldred, yeah.
Like, to me, that's right up with, like, Buddy Perry getting stuck with King Ikanos. It just wouldn't happen, would it?
No, and it's of its time. The woman always has to have a man. That they can't just have independence and have a. There has to be that silly thing.
Mate, they were like Yaz and the 13th Doctor. There was just nothing on screen that would lead you to think that those two were going to hook up.
Now, this is interesting because obviously, you see, most weeks our thread, we're all kind of on the same page. But today, the Tom Baker years, so Paul Richards loves the Ribos operation. It's an amazing, interesting world. Yeah, I get your point.
I agree with Paul Richards. Erato Effect was a big cock up.
It was. Now, Dwayne, worst story. You obviously don't think it was Megalos, but and you don't think it was Underworld.
Absolutely not. Underworld's one of the standouts of that season.
Yeah,
but I was tempted to pick Sharda, but I can't because it's my beloved season 17, and I'm not going to besmirch that season, even by picking a single story. But I would have to say my least favorite, Tom Baker, and I'm going to set the thread on fire once again because no one's going to agree with me at all.
I don't agree.
I'm going to say Image of the Fendal is my least favorite.
That's bullshit.
And there we go.
It should work on paper. It looks good. That should, but it is an absolute snooze fest for me every time. I just can't get into it.
And look, and unfortunately, the thread are going to have to side with Dan to help him out because I agree with Dwayne. I thought
I was going to be on my own.
No, I do. I struggle because I know that so many people love Image of the Fendal and some say it's a classic. And I'm going, it's certainly not a classic. It has all the ingredients. It's exactly what you said, really. I can see what they were doing. It should work.
And they did it. And it was awesome.
It's a bit like Hand of Fear could have been very like Pyramids of Mars, but it wasn't. That hand, the quarry, we had the setup, but it just didn't land for me at all, the Hand of Fear at all. In fact, I found Hand of Fear quite weak overall.
Hand of Fear.
Yeah, it's quite... And it's got Sarah in and Sarah's leaving, and actually they build it out with that scene at the end, which was so unusual for Doctor Who to have emotion between the companion and the Doctor, and a bit out there at the time. But
the one redemption for Hand of Fear is that it's kind of split into two halves.
Yes.
And it's got two Eldrad. So you've got the Judith Paris Eldrad, which I love, her costume, fantastic, absolutely great. But I didn't like the Stephen Thorne Eldrad at all. I wish they just kept her as Judith all the way through.
Yeah,
she was way more attractive as female Eldrad.
Yes, correct.
So we were saying, and I may know your answer on this one, but I'll just make sure it's confirmed. So we're doing the Tom Baker years. We've kind of edged around best and worst season, best and worst story, but let's go a bit tasty now for a moment. I'll nail my colours to the mast so that there's a bite at me again. But out of the Tom Baker years, the best villain, and I would say Magnus Greel or Taron Capel. They were I'd love, and I've been brought back, as you know, in Big Finish, but I like those characters. I think the Taron Capel character and what he does with the robots behind the scenes, and I know they've done Big Finish, but what I'm saying is I want it on the screen. Taron Capel is interesting because he could be like the nesting consciousness or the great intelligence. He's the puppeteer in the distance, but he's real and he's not like the blooming toy maker, which I can't stand really. And Magnus Greel, I mean, the Butcher of Brisbane. I mean, yeah, come on. Where can you go wrong with Magnus Greel? It looks as though you can go through time with him, a bit like you could the Master and the Rani. So I'm just shooting out there. So in the Tom Baker years, Thread and Dan and Dwayne, I think out of those two, they should really have maximized them and brought them back at some point afterwards. Taron Capel and Magnus Greel.
Yeah, I think Magnus Greel, what I love about this is, the art of Robert Holmes's world building. He manages to create a whole backstory of a whole potential of the spin-off.
Yeah.
with just a few lines of dialogue, around the the peaking homunculus and just there's not much there but you get it's enough to trigger your imagination into building a whole world around his backstory, and even just the whole thing with the Doctor knowing that they're actually time travel experiments that that have happening in the future that didn't work or went badly, but it would have been really cool to end up in the future at some point to sort of see, Magnus Greel getting hoist on his own petard at the time.
Yeah, because I mean, if you think of the Rani and what they tried to do with the Rani as this kind of serial offender in Doctor Who, is great with chemicals, great with this on different planets. And Magnus Green looks as though he's got that same kind of potential in the Who-niverse to use again and again. And the same with Taron Capel. You could build a whole world where he's got robots doing various things. So those are my two colours. And I'm well aware there's the Shadow, there's the Master, there's various villains in the Tom Baker era that could get a shout.
I've got two.
Go on then.
Two-star Lady Adrasta. No, not Lady Adrasta. Not picking her.
No.
She is very good to watch, though. You've got to give it that. But my picks would have to be. My first pick was Harrison Chase. I think he's just so beautifully menacing and camp, and all the classic Bond style characteristics in a villain that he's got. So he's absolutely drawing from Bond villains for Harrison Chase.
And the black gloves. Brilliant. The black gloves.
Yeah. My other pick would be Count Scarleone, of course, a very interesting villain. Of course, who turned out to be Scaroth, wasn't it? Yeah. So I would definitely pick those two. Very, very different villains, but both very interesting in my view.
I mean, you've got the pirate captain there as we're flicking through, and I know Count Grendel. There he is. There's your call out there. Good choices, by the way. I agree with you. Harrison Chase, brilliant one-off villain, and Count Scarleone, brilliant one-off villain. And you do wonder, and I know I've made the argument in reverse sometimes, when you've had a good story and a good villain or monster, don't bring them back like the Weeping Angels. You tend to dilute. But, we're having fun with it. These are standouts. So far, coming back to Dan, we've had Harrison Chase, we've had Count Scarleone, we've had Taron Capel and Magnus Greel. Have you got any others?
Could I just jump in there before we get to Dan? I don't know if you've heard the Magic Bullet series Caldor City, where they did actually bring back Taron Capel. The series, it's an audio series, but it features the guy that plays Ivanov, and his name has gone from my head at the moment.
Yes.
He was in Callan as well. I can't remember his name. But it also features Paul Darrow as a very Avon type character. And it's one of the best non-BBC, non-Big Finish audio series ever, Caldor City. It is just incredible. It's all set on Caldor. And Taron Capel does make a return appearance in there. It's fantastic.
Okay.
So I've got the Caldor City book that was released, I think, through BBC Books, but I don't know if it's the same as the audios that you're talking about.
No, it's totally different. That's an official Doctor Who.
So you've got
that's called
my book's canon. Oh yeah, you're right. It is. It's called Corpse Marker, but it's set in Caldor City. Yeah.
Yep.
So on the best villains, one Solon, David Harding shouting out Solon, Philip Maddock, great performance. So Dan, any we haven't mentioned, or is there one that we've mentioned that you're going, no, I agree with?
No, look, they're all great.
You like Soldeed, don't you?
Yeah, Soldeed's awesome. Yes, you got to admire a guy with a big shaft or staff.
Dear me, have you had
Where is this descending?
What's that, sorry? No, I think you've got Davros, which is brand new at the time. It's never been seen before. And Sutek, obviously,
Yes,
now
well,
ruined and destroyed.
yes. I mean, Sutek is a good call out. I feel as though this is the problem, isn't it? And I'm not going to go there again, but we all know it's a shame that when you look at all the villains and monsters of the Tom Baker era, to know that one of them has been so changed is such a shame. And I think it does resonate back to Pyramids, unfortunately. I do. But yeah,
two of them, if you include Davros.
Yeah, I mean, Davros is true. I mean, he's not a monster. He's a human. He's a villain, therefore. So, yes. Davros.
I just mean he's been changed too recently.
Yeah, and very badly. I agree. And it does affect it because it spoils your enjoyment. So, I think we've got somewhere with best villain, but we haven't said best monster in the Tom Baker era, in how they're executed. So, like the Daleks are in it twice, but whether well executed is how I would put it. So, you've had Daleks, Cybermen, you've had all those, you've had the Mandrels. Don't forget them, Dan. Best monster. I think I'm going to say now. And it's to be shut down because I'm trying to do it fast. But for some reason, the execution of
shut you down.
The execution of the Zygons and my age and how it was done. I think the Zygons, I will say.
I think I agree. Zygons are the best executed for the entire Tom Baker run, for sure.
Yeah.
I can't agree with you more on that one.
Dan, is there anything?
Yeah, no, it's a strong original monster.
Well, David Harding, while you're thinking, is saying the Sontaran in Sontaran Experiment, which quite sadistic. I agree, and therefore scary. Is it good because it's a two-parter, or is it a shame it wasn't a four-part? It's one of those you just think, could they have eked it out? Because I did.
Did you fellas like the mask change? Because he's a totally different mask, same actor, but a different look to the previous one. Did you like that? Because it's hard. It's a hard pick. I like them both.
I like them both. They know how to do a Sontaran reveal, don't they? They really know their stuff. I preferred the Time Warrior mask, but I don't think Kevin Lindsay did, and that's the point, isn't it? It was too hard.
It's amazing how that and Time Warrior, they get the Sontarans so right, and then by the time you get to Invasion of Time, and then later on in Colin Baker's era, they kind of really stuff up the execution of the heads.
Yeah. Oh, yeah. Well, tell me about it. Well, the Krynoids have been mentioned. So here, Dirty Handle says the Krynoids, and I agree, and I'll get the picture. And when we're discussing the Krynoids in a minute, Dirty Handle, so hang around because the news is a bit. On the Krynoids front, they were basically green axons, weren't they?
Sorry, the axons. Yeah. I was going to say, I was thinking that the other day. Is that the same monster just sprayed green instead of orange?
And it's a shame, as somebody said in the thread earlier, it's a shame the Krynoids went house scale, because obviously the model effect they were doing their damnedest. I love some of the model shots of that, but it's harder to execute. That's all. It's just harder to execute.
See, that's a story where, we were talking about, reimagining. And after our conversation last week, I've been thinking all week of the stories I would like to see sort of reimagined, and that's a story that actually would lend itself to modern reimagining with modern effects. But I do like the model shots in that story. So
yeah. So I don't think I've pinned down a monster. No, we've said Zygons, haven't we? What about throw it down the worst. Everyone says the Mandrels, don't they? Dead quickly. Is there a monster worse than the Mandrels? The Nymons,
yes.
I can get away with it.
Yes, there is.
Go on then.
It's the Taran Wood Beast. There you go.
What was the one in the Ribus operation? The Shamwada Wonder.
Shrivenzale.
Yeah.
Shrivenzale.
That wasn't too hot, was it?
It was better than the Taran Wood Beast.
Yeah. And the power of Kroll with its shot.
The electric squid.
Yeah, unfortunately, with the line across with the CSO wasn't too hot. Unfortunately, yeah, that was.
What about worst monster?
I mean, I suppose a robot it comes in. I mean, the robots of death are a monster, aren't they? I mean, and they were
Yeah, but
really hot. They're good. I know
they're
they're good. I'm
good. They're good.
just trying to
Yeah.
rattle through some to kind
The
of.
mummy robots were good.
George, what about this? George, good call out. Actually, yeah, the giant prawn, invisible enemy. I know the nucleus.
That was good. I thought it was an impressive prawn.
Keep him in the brain. Although when you found him in that funny sort of the brain, what a waste of brain that you get this little place and he's stood in the middle with his little kind of.
But what was the go with that? Why was he a prawn when he came out? But he was like a little black blob with a claw in the brain. How did that work? It's not explained.
Yeah, you're right. Maybe did they just break the prawn? And they went back to
they cracked him, pulled him out.
Yeah, it was one of those. I thought, oh, that's we always gone about lighting. Take lighting out of the equation, but in a way, I like to hear his sound. The nucleus, and the lightning through the eyes. And sometimes don't show the monster. Just don't show it. I mean, you say the giant. George Rainey says the giant prawn, the giant rat. Hello.
The rat was excellent. Imagine if COVID transferred through electrical. I don't even know how did that thing actually get you? How they contact has
it's just
been made.
Contact.
Contact has been made.
Yeah, well, Paul's doing his biology here. The prawn hatched out of the blob. I think it.
Well, it makes sense, doesn't it?
Yeah, something like that. What a shame it's a prawn. I mean, they'd all them baby prawns, didn't they? They were all getting heated up, weren't they? At the end, all them
should
prawns.
Have pulled him out and thrown him on the Barbie.
Yeah, the invisible enemy ends with an Aussie Barbie, really, doesn't it? That's what's going on there.
The garlic sauce. They could have had a nice feed on Titan.
Where do these fit into it in the Android invasion? Because they're just never quite landed. And yet you look at them and you think, God, I can see what they were trying to do. And when I watch the Android invasion, I really think they were trying to do Terror of the Zygons again. But again, a bit like Image of the Fendal, couldn't quite do, an earlier iteration of another story that was scary. I thought these.
I think of Rainbow. Whenever I see that, I just think of Rainbow because Roy Skelton's voice was so profound in that when it wasn't a Dalek voice.
Yeah.
It just made me think of Rainbow every time.
See, the problem I had with the Kralls is the same problem I had with the Zygons, and that is their ships and everything to me seem really primitive, but yet they were capable of like this high tech, and it's like you literally could create, this whole, duplicate copy of a world and facsimile human beings that pass inspection, like with people who know them, and yet you've got openings and doors that look like they're from the Flintstones.
Yeah,
like the ship. It looks like it was made by Fred Flintstone.
But it had a similar vibe, but just not executed as well as the Zygon ship. I could see what they were trying to do, but obviously it wasn't the same. George Rainey, who brought this up, the Kral face at the end of episode 1 was a great cliffhanger. Now we've called out, was it episode 1 Zygons with the nurse and reaching out? That was an outstanding cliffhanger for Terror of the Zygons. I know what you mean with the eye.
Yeah, because you didn't see the whole thing. You saw a bit of it.
No.
I tell you what, they're lucky that Kral virus didn't get out because, mate, just immediate contact with it will turn your brain to mush. At the end where he what about contact with his own virus?
Do you remember that when they had to run into the spaceship to escape the vaporization of that planet surface, and then the door came down, and it had. I'm talking spaceship design here. The door came down; it was just like teeth. Like there was no seal on the door.
Yeah.
What is going on?
Fred Flintstone door. Yeah, on a spaceship.
So, before we move on from the Tom Baker years, was there right? We've mentioned the Zygons cliffhanger. George Rainey's mentioned the cliffhanger with the Crowl there. Is there another cliffhanger that's worth a shout out? While you're thinking, I'm going to mention, I mean, there were some really good ones. I like the fun thinking, how the hell are they getting out of this? Was a Seeds of Doom episode 2, when you had the explosion of the base and you thought, well, how do they, you didn't see them. It's like, wow, the whole explosion, end of episode 2. I love that one as kind of, that's grim, as in, what? They were tied up, they were, stuck.
Ripper of an effect too.
Yeah, and I'll just say another one just to see where it's triggering you, everybody, regarding your best cliffhangers, was for the line and the timing was City of Death. Was it part 2, part 3? What are you doing here? Bit of music. That's what I should be asking you, Doctor. It does. Anyway, there's a few cliffhangers there. Any others coming to mind as good shout outs for great cliffhangers in the Tom Baker years?
Yeah, one that really stood out to me as a kid was the cliffhanger to episode 1 of The Keeper of Traken, with the Melker turning up, sticking his head around the corner and the eyes glowing. And the keepers, being freaked out by it. That really stood out to me as a kid. I'll tell you that much.
Well, there you go.
Yeah, the Melker was pretty cool. The only thing was, I never kind of understood. So the Melker was always a TARDIS. It was never a thing in its own right, or it was the Melker was the master in his TARDIS. That's what I was trying to figure out. If there was a creature called, because they were talking about a creature called the Melker.
Yeah, but isn't the Melker a bit like the Satan pit? That it's all terms to do with
the same thing.
Yeah. And the master was maybe using it to bite it. Because what I thought was that it was his TARDIS, but he needed time because he's dying, isn't he? He's dying. He needs a new body. And so he's kind of limping on. And so I think he needed the time. And so he lands there and he has time to groom Cassia and slowly get that link to then work out how he can escape it. Is how I kind of thought it through.
Wasn't he originally pulled down because he was so
evil,
bad, and Traken was so good? Is that why? It's a hard one, because there was supposed to be a sequel to that story called The Guardians of Prophecy, which Big Finish actually made it on audio, but was one of the original season 23s that got shelved for Trial of a Time Lord. Was going to be the sequel there to that. So that was all about Melkers, that one. So we would have found out a bit more then. But anyway.
Lots of Melker behavior. So, well, we've teased you, and I don't know how much people know, and this is like the Aussie Detox, but we've mentioned Seeds of Doom. Harrison Chase has been called out as one of the best villains. We've mentioned the Krynoids, and the thread has certainly done that. We've mentioned the Zygons. But there is a problem that's happened in the Whoniverse just overnight. Let's just cue titles for news. Yes, this is the news. I know we're all on Twitter and various things, and it was starting to go around. And I checked this morning. Basically, I love that. There's a glitch in the system. There always is a glitch. Anyway, alleged contractual problems with the Robert Banks Stewart estate may lead to the imminent withdrawal of Terror of the Zygons, followed by the Seeds of Doom from the BBC iPlayer. Now, if you checked now with those in Britain, it's off. It ended at 6 a.m. this morning. So this slide made by Gary Lee, check him out, was yesterday. So is imminent. Well, it's happened. You can't get Terror of the Zygons now, and you can't get Seeds of Doom on BBC iPlayer. So that has happened. And just to help you out, the Krynoid on the left there is obviously from Daryl Joyce's great artwork. And there's Daryl Joyce's great artwork for a Zygon. Now, Rebecca Mason...
How good is that?
Yeah, I know, it's fantastic. Rebecca Mason on one of the Facebook streams was saying the agreement on streaming rights usually is renegotiated each year, and it's obviously come up to a year already on iPlayer. From what I understand, the estate of Robert Banks Stewart haven't or can't agree a fee for continued streaming rights. So until it's resolved, both Terror of the Zygons and the Seeds of Doom will be coming off the iPlayer in the next 24 hours. And like I said, they are now off. Just to clarify some news regarding these two stories, they're now no longer there. This is due to the failure to reach an agreement with the estate of Robert Banks Stewart, who wrote both these stories on the streaming rights. This does not affect either of these stories' availability on physical media, so copies will still be available on DVD and will not affect the season 13 Blu-ray set going forward. Just to tidy things up, and then we'll discuss what we all think. Unfortunately, it's true. Those two stories are coming off iPlayer. And as some fans say, grab your DVDs while you can. Just to clarify, says the expert on this group, this is purely to do with money over the streaming rights, but does not affect the physical media release. Okay, lads, I think, Dan, you were more shocked about this because you hadn't heard anything. What are your thoughts on this and what's going on, and whether it's just a kind of flash in the pan, it'll be sorted out?
No, well, I mean, it's a bit. I was surprised at how, because we've seen a few of these problems creeping up, like with the Steph Coburn thing, and it, I've been shocked at the fact that the writers' estates of these stories have so much power and influence over the show itself. It's like because obviously all the actors and a whole production team put it together, and yet I find it bizarre that the actual writer can sort of kind of in a way has final say over the whole thing. So,
well, do you know what? I'm actually, and I am a Doctor Who fan, and it's not whether I've got the DVDs in my cupboard, which I have. The point is, I agree with them having a say. Terry Nations had a say for many years, and the Terry Nation estate, as you know, calls the shots with the Daleks, and good for them. Good for them.
Yeah, but Tom Baker and them would be entitled to rights, wouldn't they? As not well. So then, by having it not distributed,
it's just that would. If I'm thinking of, on the writing front, you think, well, listen, and I was trying to get it up, but I didn't have time, but I think everybody appreciates. In one of my early saloons, Bad Wolf, as in Jane Tranter and Julie Gardner, were doing the interview circuit, and they were talking about, we want Doctor Who to go global, bigger, better, reach every kid in the world. Okay, so the BBC's got ambitions, and it'll have something to do with that, the filthy lucre. They can see the potential to earn more money with Doctor Who. So why can't, while they've got pound signs in their head, the BBC, why can't the writers and the writers' estates think, okay then, the money stakes have gone up, we're going to be slightly harder with our negotiation. They know, and in this case, Seeds of Doom and Terror of the Zygons are absolute belters. I don't see why they can't have a say. The BBC want their pound of flesh. Why can't the writers' estates?
Look, at the end of the day, I guess my point is more the fact that the writers are effectively impacting other people's ability to collect, like the actors and who performed. So I just it's a huge amount of power to wield over the whole.
But the power, production. It's like a union strike, isn't it? I'm trying to see it in a different way. I mean, you don't get more pay unless you do a strike. And you're up against the big bosses. And the BBC are not, I mean, they'll say they're short of money, but the BBC are trying to earn more money from Doctor Who, linked with Disney, with global reach on streaming. And wasn't RTD just on the eve of season 1 saying, in Britain, we're streaming at midnight, streaming's the future, and we're belting out streaming. So if you're one of the estates of the writers, you're sat there going, okay, then, the future's streaming. I think we undersold our streaming rights last year. Next year, we'll up the ante. Isn't that just normal negotiation? And look, of course, I'm a Doctor Who fan who wants to see everything, but I also respect the these stories wouldn't exist without Robert Banks Stewart, and his estate has every right to get their version of the money rather than it just goes into the BBC pockets.
Yeah, look, I'd love to know how much these things actually generate. I mean, how much money do you reckon these things are worth on streaming anyway, given they're 50 years old,
I know it's all very, yeah, because it's all contracts. You never get to hear, but I've heard it's not massive money yet on the streaming stuff. Dwayne, what are your thoughts on this?
It's just a shame because they're such great stories, these two. Like if there were, I would pick many other Fourth Doctor stories to remove if I had to over these two. These are two of the absolute. Well, yeah, I would pick Meglos over these for sure. I love Meglos, but if I had to choose one to go out of those three, it would be Meglos. I'm sorry. Actually, no, I'm not. But yeah, when I first heard this, I was thinking to myself, oh well, I wonder if it's Robert Banks Stewart estate or whether it's the music, because these are the only two.
Carey.
No, it's Jeffrey Bergen. It's the only two.
Yes.
It's the only two stories that feature his music. So I thought initially, I wonder if it's got to do something to do with the music, but obviously all this other information's come out. It's the estate. But also got me thinking as you were reading through that, well, is that going to affect? Like, is it because Robert Banks Stewart actually wrote these whole stories that it affects just these, or is it going to flow on and affect something like Day of the Doctor, which features the Zygons as well, and then you've got the Zygon stories in season 9 of the new series? Is that going to be featured as well, or did Stephen Moffat just pay, or the BBC just pay a fee for the one-off usage for Stephen Moffat to write that script, and then he's the owner of that particular story with the payment of the rights already done and dusted as a one-off? I don't know how it works, but whether that could flow on eventually to other appearances of the Zygons is a question in my mind as well.
Well, if it'll also start piquing other writers' estates' interests to pull these kind of stunts for negotiations, it could really unravel future DVD box set releases and things.
Well, one that was rumored when BBC iPlayer was doing this last year was Mervyn Haseman and Henry Lincoln with the two Yeti stories. I remember seeing rumors saying, will they allow it? And of course, now I realize that it's open to negotiation annually. Well, they could turn around. I have to say,
but they've also got the Brigadier, so everything to do with the Brigadier. And is it just the Brigadier, or is it Unit as well? Is that something that's a separate entity? Because I know it's definitely the Brigadier, but whether Unit's separate to that, I'm not sure.
I mean, where do you honestly I mean, look, I know we're Doctor Who fans. If we kind of disconnect ourselves from a second, where do you stand on this front? Do you think, because a few estates could actually get involved here, Pip and Jane Baker's, it could be anybody's, could say, hold on a minute, if streaming is the future, we probably undersold ourselves last year or the year before or the year before. And, why should we let the people who didn't actually create it per se get all the money? I
can tell you, if I step outside the Doctor Who fan thing and look at from the other people's point of view, I'm involved with these events that are coming up, live events.
Yeah.
And I can tell you that the actors who are coming out for our events are not doing it because they just want to come out and hang out with the fans. They're doing it because they can earn a bit of money.
Yeah.
And for some of them, they're particularly older companions who are still doing the convention circuits regularly. That's a good bit of income for them. And so they're interested in that kind of income. So any way they can cash in on that, they will. And I actually say, well, good on them. If they, they put in the work those years ago, and if there is a way to, I mean, if it was me in their shoes, I would probably be exactly the same. I'd be looking to maximize anything that I possibly could. And although I'm not, the only question I have is, we were talking about Steph Coburn. I've heard some of the things he said, and he seems a little bit unhinged with some of the things he says. But you know, and I'm not sure what the full story is. I don't think we'll ever know
Yeah,
what the full story is with Steph Coburn. But as far as other estates go, like Robert Banks Stewart, Terry Nation, Hazeman and Lincoln, yeah, they've got a right to do whatever they can to maximise their income.
Now, and I agree, and we can't go heavily into the Steph Coburn thing because it is a complex one, I think, and I'll say that politely. But if you just look at face value, what he's saying here, and I know there's a bit more to it, but just taking this element, now they offer me a pittance to relicense an earthly child. I sent them my counter offer instead. Let's see how much they want them. And yes, I know there was some political argument as well about how Doctor Who's changed, and there was loads of stuff. However, I can believe that the BBC is trying to get everything on the cheap. I can believe that. And I find it's quite rich, really, when you think that the BBC for years didn't even know that the Doctor Who was a gold mine for them. That they didn't really understand the program. They dismissed it in the schedules. They refused to give it a decent budget. They put it up against various things. I mean, we could list all the mistakes made by the BBC. The BBC have now come to their senses and now realize that the Doctor Who is a fantastic kind of gold mine for them in many, many ways. And actually, one of the great RTD decisions last year was to actually push for the BBC iPlayer streaming bit. But the thing is, once you do that, the power goes to all the people with the rights, and it takes two. And the sadness with the Coburn situation is an unearthly child, and of course, unearthly child's interesting, isn't it? I think the big loss is episode 1. Episode 1 of this 61-year-old show, to lose that from being able to put it. I mean, if my understanding is correct from those tweets I showed today, the physical media should still be okay. Therefore, season 1 Blu-ray collection set.
No, it's not.
Well, that's what I mean. With
the Steph thing, I think it's not just a streaming rights thing. It's actually it covers all.
Yeah. Okay.
All things. So physical media is a problem. So right now, my response was a bit smug because I've got my copy of it and I wouldn't pay for it again. But yeah, I mean, there's a lot.
But I would buy a season 1 Blu-ray set, and if an unearthly child wasn't on it, I would feel very.
Yeah, it would has the potential to stuff up the whole box set.
Look. Even if you weren't,
let's face it, a season 1 box set with the first episode missing, it's going to be pretty bloody ordinary.
I did also think, well, we haven't got the season 13 Blu-ray set yet, so is this going to cause any issues with that? Even though the information so far is saying no, it's not. That could always change, and there could be issues with the Blu-ray release eventually.
And this is what I mean. All bets are off, aren't they, when you see this happen? It was a shocker yesterday when fans suddenly started whispering to each other that this was happening. And of course, we found a missing episode, the classic. You don't know what's true, what's not, until suddenly, in the case of missing episode rumors, they haven't found anything. In this case, I checked BBC iPlayer this morning. It's not off. Now, this is the Doctor Who detox with our Aussie pals. This doesn't affect you, though, does it? In the way
what do you mean?
As in
the fact that it's not on streaming?
Yeah, I mean, how you don't access BBC iPlayer, do you?
No.
So have you been able? I know you may have your DVD copy, but if you were one of those fans who had been, is there a service streaming wise where you can access Seeds of Doom and Terror of the Zygons?
No,
there
is no.
It's been pulled off.
BritBox has been off for what, 18 months now?
Right.
Yeah, that was the only place you could get it.
I wanted to say that to the Aussie viewers there, because I'm cognizant that I'm talking from this position here, and everybody's position is different. The other thing I was thinking about regarding suddenly the rights to stream in Terror of the Zygons and Seeds of Doom disappears for a while, hopefully for a short period.
I actually don't mind that it disappears off streaming.
We don't know
it's a good thing.
But what I'm saying is we don't know what's behind the scenes. I mean, Disney haven't announced season 3 commissioning, right? Let me just put it out there. Season 3 commissioning might be linked to an awful lot more. Like, can we please have access to the whole back catalogue, BBC, Disney? We'd like it, please. We were saying, was it only just last week, how, you know, Disney, the subs went down after the season finished, and it was a shocker for them. They don't want you just watching 8 episodes and then you clear off. They want to hold you there with their Disney subscription, surely. And surely getting hold of the BBC back catalogue might help that. So let's just say for a moment, if the Disney was saying, well, yeah, we'll probably do season 3 commissioning, but we'd like, you know, a bit more to it, and then negotiating that behind the scenes. And of course, the writers will know that because it'll all be part of the package, what's going on. Maybe that's why you up your price as well. It's a possibility. Or even if it's mooted, Dwayne, you hold back, don't you, in a negotiation?
Yeah, for sure. That's a good point, actually. If Disney are talking about the whole back catalogue, well, then everything would have to be negotiated at that point. Let's face it, though, Disney's got the money to pay Steph Coburn, so that might make him happy.
Yeah. I do remember reading, though, there was, and I don't know if it was, you know, spin from the BBC, but apparently there's like a standard sort of fee that everyone kind of gets for the Blu-ray sets.
Yeah, so the figure £20,000 comes to my mind.
That's the figure that I remember reading about. Yeah. Apparently there's a standard sort of, I don't know if it's just an industry type standard or, but that was kind of, I remember reading about that sort of standardized figure, and certain parties weren't happy with that.
I find it is interesting because streaming as a new concept or format means that, unlike before, I mean, come on, for years we used to and now this is where the Aussies will disagree with me, because the Aussies have been spoiled with repeats of Doctor Who over the years when we didn't get much at all. And when you had no access to the BBC back catalogue of anything, and suddenly now they've got BBC iPlayer and they're putting more of their archives out there, so it's a rich diet, and in many cases better than what's on TV now. But all the streaming services are trying to offer this massive catalogue of content. And surely, therefore, all those people who've got programs and it's an easy way of doing it. They're not making all these programs today. They're just chucking out to make a nice spread, to make their prospectus better, to make you buy their streaming services. So again, I seem to always logically come back to good for Robert Banks Stewart's estate, because if streaming is the future, as Bad Wolf kept shouting about, and RTD said it's brilliant, streaming, that's it. And you're sat back going, hey, God, we give that away cheap. Maybe they shouted their mouth off too much. I mean, you know.
Yeah, but without putting crap on the estate, and I mean, the actual people that did the work are no longer with us, as far as, like, you know, it is the estate. I mean, but I still have an issue with the fact that the production is bigger than just the writer. I mean, and at the end of the day, it's not like they're using the characters to do something new or different or whatever. They're gatekeeping the entire production, all the risk and reward that the BBC put into it, and all the work that was put in by people behind the scenes, and the actors and their royalties get impacted. I just think it doesn't seem quite fair to me.
Put it this way. The writers always got a fairly bad deal in the TV industry. And I think in Hollywood, they've argued the toss and been on strike, haven't they, the writers, because of that. And if you look at it, without the writers, there's actually no show. I mean, everything's built upon the story that's written and the characters that are written. And then you've got the showrunner, the writer extraordinaire called RTD, who is a writer. Let's basic. He's a writer first, producer second. He's a writer. He's full of ideas. He's paid well for his writing ideas. And you see somebody in 2024 in that position. and your dad or your mum wrote a great story. I mean, look, come on, we're talking about two classics here. Terror of the Zygons and Seeds of Doom are classics. And you're thinking, no. Sorry, you know, Robert Banks Stewart, he was up there with RTD, or if not better. So if you don't mind, we want our pound of flesh. And I just think if you did have a relative or you were part of that estate and you looked at the writers nowadays on how some of them, like RTD, are better paid, more awarded, more kind of eulogized, then you're thinking, hold on, we just need to right the wrongs here a bit.
Yeah, but see, Brendan, there's also people that on that logic, though, that have gotten a raw deal, like people that were BBC employees as opposed to contracted writers. So, like, for instance, like you think about it, Ray McCusick, who designed the actual Daleks.
Oh, yes. Yeah.
I mean, to be the designer of the look of the Daleks, and let's face it, it wouldn't have been a success without that design.
Yep.
That's the design that's carried it. I mean, he got sweet bugger all, really.
Yeah.
In the scheme of things, and look at all the bloody merchandise, and and he saw none of that as a BBC employee. And like, look at all the rewriting that Robert Holmes and Terence Dix did. I bet you their estates don't get anywhere near, because they were BBC employees. They probably don't get the same sort of rights to these things.
It's just, if you think, I mean, you've mentioned quite rightly that the Zygons were in the Day of the Doctor, and whether, I mean, it does say in the credits that the rights, so basically whether they were bought, as you were saying, Dwayne, just for that episode, or for every repeat evermore and all the rest of it. But when you think, every time I see a Planet of the Ood, or the Ood, if their Ood came back, the rights are owned by RTD, and he makes sure of that. The Jadoon, Stephen Moffat,
Angels.
Sorry, RTD, pull back, Brendan. What did you say then, Drin?
The Angels, they're Stephen Moffat.
Exactly. And again, I would argue, good for you. If you come up with a brilliant genius idea in the later, more modern market of TV, I own it. And obviously, Stephen Moffat is married into the Virtue family. They were great agents, weren't they? They were great people. Go back to Steptoe and Son, Beryl Virtue. He's married Sue Virtue, hasn't he? I mean, they're not stupid, and quite rightly. So, but I just keep going back. I have to put myself in their shoes and think, Robert Banks Stewart, I'm his son. No, the Zygons are up there with the Weeping Angels or higher. They certainly beat the Jadoon and beat the Ood. The Zygons, Krynoids a bit less so, but the story itself is brilliant. Sorry, we are going to play hardball. I have to say, I think me and Dwayne said Terror of the Zygons were the best monster in the Tom Baker era. And we both said we liked the cliffhanger as one of the best ones in the Tom Baker era, the nurse. So it's the best cliffhanger, the best monster of the Tom Baker years. And I think I said earlier,
probably the best music too.
Best music, I agree with that. And I think it was probably the best story for execution for me. So hello, Banks Stewart estate. Whether I've got a DVD behind me or not, I understand the logic. Obviously, Mervyn Haseman, their estate, Henry Lincoln, Chris Boucher.
Well, I'll tell you, from a personal point of view, I've said to my wife, like, I've got heaps of collectible things here in my man cave, and I've said to her, if anything happens to me, make sure you don't just sell it off in a garage sale or take it to a thrift store or something. You make sure you know what things are worth, and get what that's worth. That's what I want.
Yeah.
If anything happens to me, and I'm sure that Robert Banks Stewart would want the same for his family if he had the opportunity to.
Yeah,
same thing.
Well, where does it go? Like, say for instance, like the Web of Fear.
Yeah,
I mean, they lost the story for all those decades, and Philip Morris recovered it. How would the rights have worked there? Because it's like, well, if I don't recover it, then you haven't got a story to sell. There must have been some sort of negotiation at the time.
They had the script, they had the Target novels, so all the story was always there. It never went anywhere.
Yeah, but I guess in terms of the DVD distribution, when they recover the episode, it's like, well, if the estate wanted to play hardball, then I would that have been a factor? I mean, it must have been, really.
I think it's
Like,
just
And
so-
Lethbridge Stewart was always there too, so he was a character that was ongoing as well.
Well, the Steph Coburn thing, I didn't even realize that the writers and them had any claim to anything really
No,
after
I
the.
didn't. I didn't.
I just assumed the BBC had the rights to distribute and do whatever they wanted with the program.
But speaking of a fair deal, I heard I could be talking, out of my backside, but I heard that the Haysman and Lincoln estate, every time the Brigadier was used, do you know how much they got? It was £5. I think that was the deal way back then. So, split that in half, £2.50 each.
Mm.
Not a huge amount of money back
Yeah,
then.
yeah.
So if they can cash in now on something, good on them, I say.
Yeah, I tend to have that spirit as well. And look, with the Coburn issue, which we've talked about possibilities in the future. We've talked about the more serious issue, which is the Coburn issue, because it seems very complex. An Unearthly Child is an interesting one because it's television history. And episode 1, as you were saying, Dan, episode 1 of the first story of this amazing series, longest science fiction series in the world. And actually, it's one of the best episodes, isn't it? It lands, it introduces all the characters, this new world, the TARDIS. I think it's brilliant. It's a fantastic first episode. And I'm not dissing the other 3 episodes, but there's 2 stories going on at once, really. But to lose episode 1 from any broadcast at all, remember, any clips are taken out, aren't they? They can't even show clips. Is horrific, because if you remember whenever you first saw An Unearthly Child, I saw it with the 5 Faces of Doctor Who. It is that first episode, and hearing William Hartnell in the TARDIS and the first ever takeoff. I know it's not quite a takeoff, but it felt like a takeoff the way they depicted it. Oh my God. And that very first cliffhanger when you saw the shadow of a caveman and the tart. I mean, to lose that is. But there again, I'd like to think Coburn has a price that's not ridiculous, but I know it's a complicated case, but to think that's lost for good is really worrying.
Yeah. And again, it's that thing of what's fair and what's not fair. Like, I think Brian Hodgson with the TARDIS sound, every time you hear the TARDIS take off and land,
Yeah.
I mean, if it's in toys, it's in bloody everything, and he probably gets nothing for it.
Yeah. I mean, do you think we're going to see more of this, Dwayne? Do you really think? I think this is the start.
Well, yeah, there could be. I don't know how these things are made. I'm not a lawyer. I don't know exactly how it works. I mean, I do listen to a lot of Big Finish where they use the Daleks a lot. They use Sontarans. They've used Autons. So all these different estates they've had to get permissions from to use these things.
Yeah.
And they're not a big company, so I don't imagine they'd be paying huge amounts for the rights to use these things, or whether they can just do it through the BBC license. I don't know how it works. But there, and Candy Jar does the Lethbridge Stewart books, so they've got a license through the Haysman Lincoln estate to do things like that. So there are deals being made, but you're right. If the big deal's been made about streaming, so everyone's going to jump on that bandwagon, just like back in the good old days when conventions, you paid your admission ticket and you went in and got your autographs for, probably as many pieces of merchandise as you liked. Now you've got to go in and pay for each autograph, and you've got to pay for your photographs and on top of your entry as well, so that the actors get paid. And this is just built up over years. A similar kind of thing, I guess, with dealing with all these.
And I have to try and be consistent. My argument about the Sutek Never Sleeps, the end of the series, the Empire of Death. My big argument, as everybody knows, I did saloons on it, which is the vandalism of a villain and the vandalism of somebody else's work. And if that's my strong argument, which it is, and I am a man of conviction, then equally I have to respect this, which is the writers have rights or they don't. And so the person who invented Sutek, which was Robert Holmes, he's not around, but it's a shame that Sutek's, presentation has been so changed by another writer. And I find that so disrespectful. So equally, the writers who have died now of such great classics have to be respected. And I
think Robert Holmes would be absolutely appalled at what's been done to his creation. He'd be appalled.
And therefore...
Terrence Dicks as well, because, he was involved in script. He would be... Yeah, I can't imagine Terrence would like what's been going on either.
This is a hell of a discussion, isn't it? When you think Barry Letts and Terrence Dicks with the Master, in how it hit the Master's, if we talk about writers' rights, you've got to look at, quite right, they should have copyright on some of these things because they know how it should be depicted. We mentioned earlier, if you're going to mention Robert Holmes, Dwayne, what would he think of the Sontarans now eating chocolate? I mean, how he, and actually go back to the Time Warrior book and the clones and how they were cloned and everything. To go from that to a bit of chocolate and you can defeat them, or just get a wok and bash the back of their head. It seemed more inventive with the arrow, didn't it? It just seemed a little bit more. That probic vent seems to be... I got the impression it was more like the golden shot in the Time Warrior, that you had to get the arrow right in the probic vent. Now it looks as though you just get a wok and hit somewhere near it. Its military erogenous zone seems to have got bigger for the sake of lazy writing. I don't think Robert Holmes will be happy with that. So I think this is a can of worms, an absolute can of worms. And so I'm sorry to share this with everybody, but obviously Doctor Who fans would be talking about this today. And of course, I wanted to get the panel's ideas on it. And so there it is, everybody. Just to confirm, if you went on BBC iPlayer now, you cannot access Terror of the Zygons or Seeds of Doom. And we do not know when that will be rectified or if it will. Everybody's hoping it's just a matter of sorting things out. As I've said to the lads here, I just wonder if it's part of a bigger negotiation issue with Disney or another streamer about back catalogues. I suppose watch this space, lads.
Yeah, and I think there's a long way to go with streaming services in general anyway, because most of them are losing money. So
yeah. Well, there you go. Obviously,
we're going to end up with two. That's how it'll be. Probably in the next 5-10 years, there'll be only two streamers, and they'll have the monopoly.
Yeah, it's like everything else, isn't it? You get a whole rich diet, and then suddenly dog eat dog, and then you've left with a few, and choice is less so. Dwayne, you're getting closer to your convention. I call it a convention. You know what I mean? The tour of Sylvester McCoy and Janet Fielding. You're getting very close to them now. How's everything going?
Going fantastic. We've only a week from tomorrow in Melbourne. We are going to be having, the VIP dinner's on the Saturday, the event's on the Sunday, but also on the Saturday, we've got a collectible store called Aaron's Collectibles, who's a friend of the podcast. And we're going to take Janet and Sylvester out to his store, and they're going to do a signing out there. And I think that's at 1 p.m. in the afternoon. Check Aaron's Collectibles if you're in Melbourne. A great store. All you need to do to get a signature on something is buy something. So that's a pretty good deal.
Well, you're selling the store as well for when I get to Australia early next year, which I will be in contact with all you Aussies about, hopefully meeting up with everybody. But what's your state of play? You're obviously organised. You've done this before, and you had Fraser and Katie recently as well. But you tried and tested, and you've done this plenty of times. But what's your personal state of play? Are you getting a bit nervous? Are you? I know you're checking the weather forecast for taking Sylvester out and stuff like that.
Yeah. Well, I'm looking forward to catching up with Sylvester next week, because the week after that, we're going to Adelaide on the Saturday, Hobart on the Sunday, and then he's hanging out in Tasmania for a week or so. So I'm wanting to find out exactly what he wants to do so I can show him around the state, which is what he wants to see. And then the week after that, the anniversary weekend, we're doing Brisbane on the 23rd, the anniversary day, and Sydney on the 24th. So Janet is in town as well, but she's only going to be at Melbourne and Adelaide at this stage.
Right.
So she may change her mind, but just those two for the moment. Yep.
Cool. Well, and all the best. And I know you might tell us a bit of what happened afterwards as well. Hopefully, do you know? While we're talking, the thread.
I'll actually be in Melbourne next Friday for. But I will jump on. I'll be in my hotel room and I'll jump onto this. So give you the lay of the land from Melbourne next week.
Are you going to be up here in Sydney on the 24th? Because I'm going to the 24th.
Yes. Yeah, I'm doing every one of them.
Oh, well,
yep.
It'll be good to say good day in person then.
Don't pull faces at me from the front row, eh?
Hey, here's a question before we go, though. It's a good one, Triple Jazz, also in Tassie. How many years till something becomes public and copyright is removed? Now, you look at Peter Pan and John Barry. I thought that was 100 years or so. Charles Dickens' stuff is William Shakespeare's is out now.
Sherlock Holmes.
Yeah, it's an interesting one. I know, but I thought for some reason in the back of my head, Triple Jazz, I'm thinking 100 years with the more recent stuff and John Barry and stuff like that. But
I'm thinking more like 70, 75, something like that. Well, but I don't know, to be honest.
I think
I didn't think it was 100.
Because this was coming up with Disney now, and I think they've figured out ways to, get around the limit. Because I think some of Disney stuff's getting on. I think some of theirs is 50 years.
Yeah. Because we've all used Mickey Mouse from Steamboat Willie, is it? We've all been able to use that one. So, but I don't know if writing. The rules are different with music as well, as you know. So, yeah, it's one. Yes, and I think somebody had said earlier, it's a great shame we can't have a copyright lawyer on. This news only hit, as you know, yesterday, and I checked it out today because I never know if a rumor is just a rumor. Anyway, thank you for sharing your time, lads. We did have Doug earlier, and thanks to him, but the mic came in and out and was echoing, and he tried his best. But thanks again, Dan. Somebody I think Triple Jazz, I think, was asking, what is your name? Dan. There you go. We've confirmed it. And thank you, Dwayne, and all the best for next week. I know it'll be great, and I'm dying to hear how it went.
Yeah, I'll talk to you before then. If we're on for the detox, I might need a detox next week. We'll see how we go. But I'll try my best to be here in my mobile studio.
well, I appreciate that, but I understand. But thanks everybody, and have a good night. Good night, Australia. Good morning, America. Bye for now.